My wife's stunning female bestie slept with me. My good brother, Gui Ge, has a chronic illness and is unable to have children. In order to fulfill his beautiful wife's desire for a child, he actually encouraged me to seduce her and intentionally created opportunities for me to live under the same roof as his wife. Faced with the temptation of beauty and money, I gradually fell into temptation. However, it wasn't until the final moment that I discovered everything was part of Gui Ge's carefully planned conspiracy. Chapter 1: Brothers Help Me Have a Child. In the dimly lit private room, the red and yellow ambient lights gave off an ambiguous vibe. The constant sound of heavy breathing from the adjacent room stirred up excitement in the air. My mouth felt dry, and I tried my best to suppress the restlessness in my heart, staring at the young woman in front of me, whose body was alluringly shaped. Gui Ge said that if I don't take good care of you, he'll throw me out of Jinhaihui. The woman slightly raised her head, lightly biting her red lips, giving me an expression of seductive allure as if she were waiting for me to pick her. She was only wearing a black sheer long dress, her fair skin partially visible. The uniform at Jinhaihui was indeed quite enticing, designed to stimulate a man's senses. The Gui Ge she referred to was my college roommate. After graduating a few years ago, he had worked hard and bravely fought his way into the ranks of successful people. On the other hand, I, as his brother, had been laid off and had become unemployed. In the afternoon, when I chatted with Gui Ge, I had casually mentioned the idea of starting my own business. Gui Ge immediately dragged me to Jinhaihui foot massage and mysteriously told me that a big fortune was about to arrive. But was this it? I silently cursed in my heart, thinking that if playing with women could bring wealth, that would be ridiculous. I wasn't sure if Gui Ge did this on purpose, but he didn't fully close the door to the next room. I could catch glimpses of the passionate scene inside through the corner of my eye. At my age, full of youthful energy, how could I resist such temptation? My body naturally started reacting. How many customers have you served? I tried to change the subject. You're the first. The woman's lips pouted slightly, and she looked as if she were about to cry. My boyfriend made me come to Jinhaihui. He said if I didn't make money, he would leave me. Good brother, can you just try? You don't need to do anything, I'll take care of it. The woman stood up and rushed towards me, trying to unbuckle my belt. Damn it. Eating soft rice. I cursed her useless boyfriend in my heart while pushing her away. Forget it, I'm really not interested in you. But. The woman looked up slightly, and her low-cut neckline revealed a significant portion of her cleavage. Even without you, I still have to serve other customers. I was stunned. That's right. Jinhaihui was officially a foot massage shop, but behind the scenes, they were involved in unspeakable activities. The shop was an investment of Gui Ge, and a woman was in charge of managing it. I had never understood why Gui Ge, who had already achieved success, would involve himself in such dirty business. It wasn't that I was looking down on the woman in front of me, I just felt a bit repulsed by what most men like to do for entertainment. I can't do it. I feel guilty about it. I picked up my jacket from the bed and casually draped it over the woman's shoulders. Tell Gui Ge later that we've done it. You can't. The woman seemed to misunderstand my words, and her eyes unconsciously glanced toward my lower abdomen. The seductive music in the background, combined with the sight of other provocatively dressed women moving around, made it hard for me not to react. If I didn't I would start questioning my own masculinity. Doesn't seem like it, but you definitely could. Just as I was about to say something, a loud shout from the next room interrupted me. The noise stopped abruptly. Gui Ge was finally done. I let out a sigh of relief, stood up, and prepared to greet Gui Ge. It was then that I realized Gui Ge had intentionally let me hear and see his pleasure palace. What exactly does Gui Ge want? While I was pondering, Gui Ge came out of the room, dressed and supported by a woman with big waves of hair. So fast. Gui Ge was surprised when he saw me standing there calmly. Da Liu, are you okay? I was too nervous. I didn't want to reveal the truth. Har har har. Gui Ge introduced me to the big-haired woman beside him. This is my brother. From now on, don't charge him any fees. Got it. The woman had a figure that was so hot it could make anyone bleed from the nose. She leaned on Gui Ge's shoulder and gave me a seductive look. Liu Ge, from now on, Jinhaihui will be your home. Oh. I lowered my head, feeling a bit shy as I pointed to the woman standing nearby. She's not really cut out for this job. Please don't push her into it. From our conversation earlier, it was clear that the woman didn't want to be in this line of work. Listen to Liu Ge. The big-haired woman put on a serious face and said, "From now on, you'll be responsible for taking care of Liu Ge. Don't worry about the other customers." The woman thanked me profusely and left. For her, it was a win-win situation. She could earn money without having to degrade herself too much. You go outside. I need to talk to Da Liu. The air in the private room wasn't great, and the door to the adjacent room opened slightly, letting in a dizzying scent. It was the smell of hormones. I reluctantly took the cigarette Gui Ge tossed to me and lit it. "So, what do you think? The woman I picked out, is she enough for you?" Gui Ge exhaled a puff of smoke, savoring the moment. "She's fine. You, after working in big companies for a few years, you're almost out of touch with society's lower levels." Gui Ge crossed his legs and sighed in frustration. "Among our roommates, you used to be the best off, but look at you now. Don't make me say it." I couldn't help but feel a bit down. I had been laid off from my corporate job, and since then, I hadn't been able to find a proper job for almost half a year. Gui Ge's words were like a slap to the face. "I heard Li Ying has been trying to buy a house. I've discussed it with Zhuoran, and we can help you out." Gui Ge suddenly sat up straight. "Da Liu, I can help you with the down payment, but are you really willing to let Li Ying keep selling her body, posing and showing off in live streams?" Li Ying was my girlfriend, and she had a short temper. Because of her character, she couldn't handle the workplace's power struggles. After graduating from university, she had been doing online live streaming. She had made some progress after a few years, but unfortunately, as more viewers woke up and platform regulations became stricter, earning opportunities dwindled. After I lost my job, I had been relying on Li Ying's income to support myself. Because of this, I was often scolded by Li Ying. "Da Liu, you're the most talented and the most strategic among us." Gui Ge said to himself, "None of the brothers want to see you fall into despair. What you need is an opportunity to start something of your own. Don't flatter me." I forced a bitter smile. "Not only do I need an opportunity, I need money too." Gui Ge seemed to be pondering. "Right now, there's an opportunity that could give you startup capital instantly. It's up to you whether you want it or not." "What?" "This good thing exists. With the current economic climate, entrepreneurship seemed to be the only way out. During the past 6 months of unemployment, I had been researching which path to take. Looking back, I realized that the years spent in big companies had actually wasted all my entrepreneurial opportunities. Gui Ge was different from me. He came from a rural background, and his academic results were only average. Besides his relentless struggle, he had no other way out. 30 and standing firm. Gui Ge exhaled a smoke ring and continued to lecture me. "But look at you now, no family, no career. Just thinking about it makes me upset." After years of business, Gui Ge had developed the aura of someone who had made it to the top. He completely controlled the rhythm of the conversation. Standing in his position, he certainly had the right to say that. I frowned slightly. "So, what exactly is this opportunity you're talking about?" Perhaps thinking the time had come, Gui Ge no longer beat around the bush. He took a deep drag of his cigarette, then said seriously, "Da Liu, are we brothers?" "Yes," I nodded firmly. "Then, as a brother, help me have a child." "What?" I was confused. "Chen Yonggui, what do you mean by having a child?" Chapter 2, This Kid's Not Getting It. Guide's wife, Zhuoran, like Li Ying, had also once worked in the live streaming industry. The two met through Li Ying's introduction. Under Guide's persistent pursuit and the overwhelming force of his wealth, Zhuoran quickly fell for him, abandoning her live streaming career and marrying Guide. However, more than 3 years had passed, and the couple still hadn't had any children. I knew that Guide had consulted numerous famous doctors in an attempt to resolve his physiological issues, but ultimately, none of the treatments had worked. There were even jokes among our friends that, with Guide's situation, at least they saved money on buying condoms. But, unless you were in his shoes, you couldn't understand the pain Guide was going through. "You know Zhuoran's personality, she's quite stubborn," Guide sighed, lowering his once proud head. Our marriage has been on the rocks because of this child issue. She's almost gone mad, do you know that? So, what does you asking me to have a child mean? I felt sympathy for Joran. It means exactly what it sounds like. Guy Ge forced a bitter smile. I've confirmed that my problem is incurable. I guess it's because I played too hard in the past, and now my body can't have children. It's God's punishment, and I have to accept it. Big Liu, you were good at school, you're handsome, your genes are definitely good. The key thing is, Joran once mentioned that she had feelings for you. Oh. I froze. Joran had a more sophisticated, elegant beauty compared to Li Ying, who was the complete opposite. Anyone who could make a living in the live streaming industry had to be good looking and have a great body. If we're talking about body proportions alone, Joran might even be more outstanding than Li Ying. If it weren't for your strong relationship with Li Ying, maybe I, Chen Yonggui, wouldn't have been able to marry her. Guy Ge chuckled bitterly. Brother, do me a favor. If you succeed, I'll give you $1 million for a boy, or 500,000 for a girl. What do you think? And I guarantee that when you start your business, I'll use all my resources to support you. So this was their great fortune, he mentioned. I stood up in shock. Chen Yonggui, are you crazy? I'm not crazy. I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. Guy Ge's eyes dimmed, and tears welled up. The Guy Ge I knew had always been domineering and flashy, like a nouveau riche. But now, seeing him like this, so vulnerable, it was a side I had never seen before. I don't want a divorce from Joran. If we have a child to tie her down, she will definitely stay with me, Guy Ge said, forcing a smile. Big Liu, do I need to kneel and beg you? Oh. I finally understood why we ended up at the Jin Haihui foot massage place. Guy Ge was a master at manipulating people. He knew I was a man of integrity and that I would never betray Li Ying without a reason. That's why he had arranged the drinks earlier and then brought me to Jin Haihui, where he had set up a beautiful woman to tempt me. Once infidelity happens once, it will likely happen again. If it weren't for my strong will, I would have been completely controlled. Unfortunately, I could resist the temptation of beauty, but I couldn't ignore the allure of money. 500,000, or $1 million if I could get that, I would have enough to start my own business. I was tempted. Has Joran agreed to this? If she had agreed, I wouldn't have come to ask you. That made sense. There were always young people with great genes in the world. With Guy Ge's financial resources, he could find anyone with good genes. Only you can potentially convince Joran and find a way to get her into bed. Guy Ge spoke as if it were a big business deal. My heart raced. It felt a bit unreliable. No, I'll think about it. All right, Guy Ge said, standing up. Let me take you home. We walked out of Jin Haihui side by side. The sultry woman with the big waves followed us out, leaning in to ask Guy Ge, did you talk it through? Not yet. Guy Ge lit another cigarette. This kid's not getting it. So what now? The woman seemed to ponder. Should I try first? Let's see. We'll talk tomorrow. Guy Ge dismissed her suggestion for now. Their conversation seemed casual, but it was crystal clear to me. I wasn't sure if they were doing it on purpose. As we were about to leave, I couldn't help but look back. The woman, her cleavage barely covered, leaned against the door and pouted her red lips at Guy Ge. Oh. I shivered, quickly looking away and focusing on the path ahead. Her name is Ashiang. Guy Ge casually continued, she's been in this line of work for a while, so her body is a bit dirty, but she's really good at what she does. Oh. I was stunned. What are you telling me this for? What I mean is, if you're feeling uneasy about it, you can start with Ashiang. Guy Ge turned his head with a mysterious smile. Don't you want to try the feeling of being with an exceptional woman? To say I didn't want to, that would be a lie. My experience wasn't as rich as Guy Ge's, and my life wasn't as colorful. Honestly, if I were alone with Ashiang, I might not be able to resist her charm. It was too risky. I broke into a cold sweat. Just take me home. Har har har. Guy Ge laughed loudly, not saying anything else, and drove me straight to the entrance of Liu Shen's neighborhood. 3 days. As we parted, Guy Ge held up 3 fingers from the car window. You've got 3 days to agree. If not, I'll find someone else. Big Liu, we're brothers, of course, I'll give you the first chance. If you think the price is too low, we can always negotiate. Unquestionably, every word Gui Ge said struck a chord in my heart. Money, brotherhood, beautiful women. Each one was impacting my wounded soul. Standing in the empty elevator, Xiang's seductive face kept flashing in my mind, only to be replaced by Zhuoran's image. One seductive, one cold. These two women kept switching in my mind. Ding! The elevator door opened, and I bumped into Liying, who was carrying a suitcase, ready to leave. You're leaving? Liying had mentioned a trip to Hainan a few days ago. She said there was a hot topic there, and she was going to follow the trend to get more traffic. I just transferred you 5,000. Liying's eyes skimmed over my face with disdain. Pay the utility bills tomorrow. Also, the internet at home is always lagging. While I'm gone, you should have someone come fix it. A man can't make money, and his backbone just disappears in front of a woman. Got it. I felt deeply ashamed. The little savings I had from the years of working had been wiped out in this half a year of unemployment. Liying was paying for everything at home. Big Liu, don't overthink it. Seeing that I was in a bad mood, Liying put down her suitcase and said seriously, I'm really going to Hainan to make money. If you don't believe me, call Zhuoran. She knows about it. Chapter 3, Your competitor is no ordinary person. Working as a live streamer, it's inevitable to encounter situations where you have to deal with their big brothers who support your live stream room. Over the years, many such big shots have come from all corners of the country to Fujian, just to meet Liying for a meal. I followed up a few times and observed that Liying is quite adept at setting boundaries. She manages to keep those big brothers spending money on gifts while ensuring they can't even touch her hand. Even so, seeing her walk around with other men still makes me uneasy. After noticing this, Liying stopped telling me about her work altogether. I trust you, I said with a bitter smile, helping Liying smooth out her slightly messy hair. Be safe on the road, stay in touch with me. Got it, Liying nodded coldly and walked into the elevator with her suitcase. This trip to Hainan wasn't solo. She had made plans to meet up with a few close friends from other cities who are also streamers. They were going to meet in the provincial capital and take a flight to Hainan together the next day. However, with Liying away, I collapsed on the couch, feeling an overwhelming emptiness. Staring blankly at the ceiling, I couldn't help but think back on the moments I had shared with her. She had once said that when we could afford a house, we would consider getting married. Unfortunately, after a few busy years, marriage seemed farther and farther from us. If having a child was Zhuoran's obsession, then buying a house was Liying's greatest desire. She had been working hard toward that goal. As for me, these last 6 months had been spent in idle stagnation, only dragging Liying down. I often felt guilty, even thinking about swallowing my pride and delivering takeout to make some money. But my pride and dignity stopped me from going along with that, unwilling to earn a measly paycheck. Suddenly, a loud ringtone broke my thoughts. I picked up the phone and saw it was from Brother Gui. Furrowing my brows, I answered. Liying left. How did you know? Brother Gui asked. Zhuoran told me, I replied. His tone was light. I could picture Brother Gui hiding in his study, holding the receiver carefully to avoid Zhuoran hearing their conversation. Big Liu, I need to tell you something, but don't get mad. You're saying? I had a bad feeling. This live stream event in Hainan was organized by a friend of mine. Brother Gui lowered his voice. That guy has always had feelings for Liying. He planned this whole thing just to create an opportunity to spend time alone with her. What? My hair stood on end, and cold sweat trickled down my back. Big Liu, don't panic, Brother Gui said, trying to calm me down. I know that guy. As long as Liying doesn't agree, he won't do anything out of line. I felt a bit more reassured. I had learned over time that Liying, like me, was someone who could maintain boundaries. However, just as I started to relax, Brother Gui continued to manipulate my thoughts. Big Liu, right now you have no money, no career, and you rely on Liying for living expenses, right? A woman who can treat a man well without expecting anything in return shows how sincere Liying is with you. But the problem is, how long can this last? His words sent me into deep thought. I knew exactly what Brother Gui was trying to do. He wanted to break through my mental defenses and get me to accept his proposal. Even so, I couldn't ignore what he said. Indeed, in the 6 months since I lost my job, Li Ying had never complained, but the subtle disdain that sometimes slipped through in our interactions was unmistakable. How could a woman truly love a man who was incapable? Brother, you should seize the opportunity. Brother Gui's tone was serious. You need to understand, your competitors are no ordinary people. Just relying on feelings, you won't go far. The final sentence hit me hard. I clenched my phone, my body trembling slightly. All right, I agree. That's what I wanted to hear. Take a cab to my place right now. I'll create an opportunity for you two to be alone. So fast. Better sooner than later. If you can manage to get Zhuoran in these few days when Li Ying is away, everything will be easier. What if Zhuoran tells Li Ying? I didn't want to risk losing Li Ying, so I hesitated. If this plan put her at risk, I'd rather stay unsuccessful. If you can't handle it, maybe Zhuoran will tell Li Ying, Brother Gui chuckled darkly. But if you treat her well, and she develops feelings for you, how could she destroy your relationship with Li Ying? I had a nagging feeling that this was a paradox. And hearing Brother Gui's impatient tone made me wonder if he had ulterior motives. Was he really just after a child? With these thoughts weighing on me, I left the house and quickly took a cab to Brother Gui's villa. When I rang the doorbell, Zhuoran appeared at the door immediately. She was wearing a silky pale yellow nightgown, her fair skin glowing under the lights, almost blinding me. Zhuoran's figure was indeed perfect. From every angle, there were no flaws to be found. Big Liu, what are you doing here? Zhuoran was also surprised to see me. I had come to this villa many times before. Even when Brother Gui was away on business, Zhuoran would ask me for help with things like changing light bulbs or fixing appliances. At that time, there were no romantic thoughts between us. Our interactions were casual and relaxed. But now, Brother Gui's voice echoed in my head, handle Zhuoran. Help me have a kid with her. With this thought in mind, I could no longer look at Zhuoran's beautiful body without hesitation. As she bent down to pour me tea, my gaze inevitably slipped into her neckline. The fullness of her curves made my blood rush, and I couldn't control my body's reaction. Seemingly sensing something, Zhuoran glanced at me and asked, Big Liu, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? No, I'm fine. I quickly turned slightly, afraid she'd notice my discomfort. Li Ying's gone, is your mind uneasy? Zhuoran casually sat down across from me. Her long legs, perfectly straight, were impossible to ignore. You should have more faith in her. Li Ying has told me she believes you'll be able to make a comeback. I forced a smile and nodded in response. But deep inside, desire was consuming me. How had I never felt this way about Zhuoran before? I pinched the inside of my thigh, trying to keep myself under control. Xiaoran, who's here? Brother Gui's voice came from upstairs. It's Big Liu. Zhuoran got up and said, Our Gui, come down and keep him company. Oh, it's my brother. Brother Gui was a great actor. If I hadn't confirmed we had talked earlier, I would have suspected he knew everything. Big Liu, why are you here so late? Honestly, what are your intentions with my wife? Brother Gui asked with a teasing smile. Chapter 4 Pay attention to the movements at night. I can actually see what Gui Ge is thinking. He knows how to grasp people's hearts. Whatever he decides, he will hint at it in every detail. This seemingly joking remark was actually a hint to Zhuoran that she should not always treat me as a friend. I lowered my head guiltily, and when I was about to reply, I suddenly saw Zhuoran's face suddenly change. Gui, what are you talking about? In my impression, Zhuoran has always been a dignified and gentle woman. When talking to people, she always has a smile that makes people feel like spring breeze. Whenever she spoke with a stern face, it meant that she was very angry. Obviously, Brother Gui knew Zhuoran better, so he pretended to be relaxed as he walked downstairs. I was just joking with Da Liu, why are you so angry? Do you think everyone is like you, Chen Yonggui? Zhuoran snorted coldly, Da Liu's character is much nobler than yours. I understand. Brother Gui raised his hands in surrender, my dear wife, our good brother is here, why don't you go get some supper for us two brothers to have a couple of drinks? Zhuoran ignored Gui Ge's pleas for mercy, turned around and smiled at me, Da Liu, please sit down for a while. I'll heat up the leftovers from dinner. It will be ready soon. I nodded in agreement and sat down on the sofa. How about it? Gui Ge sat next to me and raised his eyebrows at me. After you had thoughts about my wife, do you think she is more beautiful? Forehead. Although I was reluctant to admit what Gui Ge said, I felt that I could not deceive anyone. I have never thought of Joran as anything other than a friend before, and I can always treat him in a relaxed manner whenever we are together. But now, the look in his eyes when he looks at Joran always becomes fiery unconsciously. It's not my fault that I forget my principles for the sake of beauty. Joran is a rare beauty with a pretty face and perfect figure, each of which can arouse the wildness in a man's heart. In my opinion, the 4 words, top beauty, are actually an insult to Joran. She is the kind of goddess who floats in the clouds and whom mortals can only look up to. Brother Gui, are you really willing to do this? I'm from the countryside. Brother Gui lit a cigarette and turned his head to look into the kitchen, as if he was afraid that Joran might hear him. No matter how things develop outside, the feudal idea of passing down the family line in the countryside cannot be changed. I don't have any children, and when I go back to my hometown these years, I always feel inferior to others. Especially when I see the old man's grave without anyone offering incense or burning paper, it's as if I can see my future self. The rhythm of Gui Ge's conversation is really amazing. In just a few words, he describes the situation he is in. Although I don't live in the countryside, I have a general understanding of some ideas about passing on the family line. Some people will do anything to have a child. Look at me, I'm doing well outside, I have everything I want. But what happens after I die? I become a deserted grave with no one to burn paper for me. Gui Ge put out his cigarette with a painful expression on his face. The thought of having a child is driving me crazy. We are brothers. If my wife follows you, it will be considered as keeping the wealth within the family, right? Brother Gui is used to smoking while talking. While asking, he lit another one. Looking at Brother Gui with a sincere face, an idea suddenly came to my mind. Does Gui Ge really love Joran? Was it to keep Joran by her side, or was it for his idea of continuing the family line? Or maybe both. Nothing can be seen from Gui Ge's face. As a veteran in the business world, no one could tell from the outside that he was unwilling to reveal his emotions. At this time, Joran heated up the food and came over with it, interrupting their conversation. Da Liu, don't just sit there like an idiot. Go help my wife. Okay. I quickly stood up and took the hot plate. Sister-in-law, let me do it. Joran smiled at me and said, there are 2 more dishes. You can drink first. Thank you, sister-in-law. Looking at Joran's departing back, I felt a sense of loss. Come, have a drink. Brother Gui opened a bottle of his treasured wine and leaned close to my ear to warn me, don't drink too much, and don't sleep so deeply at night. What? Anyway, good things will come to you, kid. I subconsciously thought of the private room in the foot massage parlor. Brother Gui deliberately opened the door a crack, allowing me to clearly hear him and a Xiong making love. I have already enjoyed it once in the afternoon. Are we going to see another live sex show tonight? I felt a sense of anticipation in my heart. With Gui Ge's advice, I always take small sips when drinking. Gui Ge didn't mind and picked up the cup to drink. During this time, after Joran prepared the meal, he washed up and went upstairs to sleep. Gui Ge and I drank for more than an hour, and when we confirmed that there was no more noise coming from upstairs, Gui Ge stood up, patted my shoulder and said, it's almost time, let's go to bed. Come, I have prepared a room for you. Gui Ge's small villa has 2.5 floors, and the top floor is a place for resting and drinking tea. There are 3 rooms on the 2nd floor. Brother Gui took me to the door of a guest room and pointed to the next room mysteriously, be careful at night. Huh? Sister-in-law didn't sleep in the bedroom. I broke up with her 3 months ago just for this day. Forehead. I was stunned. Suddenly I felt that Brother Gui was a bit scary. He would do anything to achieve his goals. Joran, such a perfect woman, was actually played around by him step by step. Poor Joran was unaware of it and still believed in Gui Ge's sweet words. It's the time and the fate. This may be Joran's disaster. In my heart, I felt sorry for Joran, but for the money that Gui Ge had promised me, I did not tell her about my idea of being on guard against Gui Ge for the time being. Back in the room, I tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep. Under the cover of night, the whole villa was silent. Although I knew there were 3 people sleeping on the 2nd floor, I still felt a little lonely facing the endless darkness. I opened my phone and scrolled through my moments, and found a selfie taken by Li Ying at the provincial capital airport. The Hainan trip starts here. Li Ying habitually raised her scissors hands, and the two shallow dimples on her mouth made her look particularly sweet. Scrolling down, I found Juran's like. It seemed as if a string in my heart was pulled, and I followed Juran and clicked the like button. After a while, a message came from Li Ying's phone. Why aren't you asleep yet? I'm at Guide's house, drinking with him. Drink less and think more about your future. Li Ying immediately sent another message. Go to bed early. I'll bring you some Hainan specialties when I come back. Don't waste money. I typed out a line of words against my will. After waiting for a long time, Li Ying did not reply to the message. I sighed and just put down my phone when I suddenly heard tiptoeing sounds coming from outside the door. Chapter 5. You are such a loser. Crunch. My door was gently pushed open, and Gui Ge crouched down and ran to the head of my bed. Did you hear that? What? I was so focused on chatting with Li Ying that I didn't notice what was happening next door. Da Liu, are you pretending to be stupid in front of me? Brother Gui pulled me up with a grim look on his face, dragged me out, and pushed him to the door of Juran's room. The door to the room is not locked, see if you can go in directly. After Gui Ge finished speaking in a pinched voice, he returned to his room. I was left alone, standing in the corridor in a daze. In the quiet night, a woman's extremely suppressed voice could be faintly heard. But there was clearly only Juran in the room, so how could there be a sound? My heart was pounding. My trembling hands involuntarily rested on the door handle. With a slight push, I could see what was going on in the room. No, I can't. When I was about to use force, I backed off again. I always felt like a thief and it was hard to get over that hurdle in my heart. Woo woo. Juran's suppressed crying sounded like a ghost summoning, constantly ringing in my ears. The curiosity that I had just suppressed was ignited again. It's just a quick look. You won't be noticed. The desire to explore overcame reason. Besides, your brother allowed me to do this, so I am not doing anyone any favors. Just a look. Trying hard to suppress his trembling hands, he pressed the door handle down a little bit, and then pushed the door open a crack. The next moment, Juran's suppressed voice of pain reached my ears clearly. Looking at the woman tossing and turning on the bed, my mind went blank. We have known each other for so many years. I have seen countless different looks of Juran, but I have never seen such a charming side of her. This is. I stared with my eyes wide open, almost suffocating as I stared at Juran, who had completely displayed his body in front of me. My dazed eyes couldn't move at all. It turns out that she also has physical needs. In the past, Juran was noble and dignified. Her every move and smile carried the aura of a goddess, making people dare not look directly at her. But Juran's performance at this moment made me feel like the goddess also had to poop herself. That noble color suddenly dimmed, and she fell from a goddess to a mortal. But it's not that bad. I felt strange in my heart. Even if Juran can't bear it anymore, he won't fall to the point where he needs to solve it himself. She is such a reserved person, she definitely won't do such a crazy thing, unless. I subconsciously blamed Brother Gui for this. It must have been his method. Just as I was daydreaming, Juran suddenly turned around, his sweaty face facing the door. At this moment, my heart was in my throat. From the corner of my eye, I saw Juran's messy hair draped over her cheeks, and the gaps between her hair revealed her slightly closed beautiful eyes. She didn't see it. I was so scared that I was sweating all over. I hurriedly closed the door before Juran opened his eyes. Back in the room, I still couldn't suppress my inner fear, and kept telling myself that Juran must not have noticed. This night. I don't even know how I got through it. Whenever he closed his eyes, he always felt that Juran suddenly appeared at the head of the bed, staring at him with anger in his eyes. I persisted in a daze for the whole night, until dawn, when I heard the sound of Gui Ge lighting a cigarette with a lighter outside, and I finally felt relieved. I got up and opened the door, and saw Brother Gui appear at the door. You kid, you are really disappointing. Brother Gui blew out a smoke ring and laughed. A beauty came to your doorstep, and you only dared to take a few glances. Keep your voice down. I looked towards Juran's room guiltily. What are you afraid of? She went out for a morning run. It seems that Juran really didn't notice my peeping last night. Looking at Gui Ge, who looked disappointed, I couldn't help but ask, "What's going on with sister-in-law?" "Nothing much, just put something in her tea." Brother Gui has invested in Jinhai Hui, so he naturally has no shortage of exciting potions. But for some reason, I suddenly felt sorry for Juran, and even a little angry. The uncontrollable emotions made me suddenly attack and punch Gui Ge in the corner of his mouth. Grass. Brother Gui staggered back a few steps, leaned against the wall, covered his mouth and glared at me. "Liu Xian, you are fucking crazy." "I'm not crazy." Anger made me sober. "Chen Yonggui, tell me, what are you thinking?" As if sensing that I was really angry, Gui Ge's eyes changed from anger to helplessness. "I have said everything I should say, and I have done everything I should do for you. I just want to tell you that I want a baby, that's all. As for whether you believe it or not, and whether you are willing to continue doing it, it's up to you." From Gui Ge's contradictory reasons, I have chosen to believe that he did all this to protect this family and to maintain his reputation in the village. After all, a rich man never returns home, like a man in fine clothes walking at night. What makes me angry is that the way he treated Juran was heartbreaking. Juran was like an innocent child, being manipulated by him at will without realizing it. Har har har. Brother Gui suddenly laughed out loud. "I understand, you feel sorry for Juran. Good, at least you're interested." I calmed down a little. "Don't you think this is playing with fire? As long as I can have a baby, I'm not afraid of self-immolation." Brother Gui stood up and relit his extinguished cigarette. "Brother, I promise you that I will never interfere again. I will be gone for a while, at least 7 days, and I will help you find an excuse to stay here. You know Juran is afraid of being alone. She feels more at ease with you around. I didn't want to become someone like Juran who was manipulated by him at will, so I felt better when I heard him promise not to interfere. Come on, I'll take you somewhere." "Where are you going?" "What? Do you want to hurt yourself?" Brother Gui wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Of course I'm going to find a place to relieve your sexual desire." If he hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten about it. After experiencing 2 consecutive sensory stimulations, my body was indeed too bloated to bear it. Then thinking about the fact that she would be alone with Juran next, she was afraid that Juran would see her because of some of her reactions. To avoid embarrassment, for some unknown reason, I agreed to Brother Gui's request and drove with him to Jinhai Hui again. It was still morning, so a place like this wouldn't open so early. Brother Gui took me directly through the staff passage and soon arrived at the box on the top floor. "Argue, what's the situation?" Arseong walked in yawning, with her signature big wavy hair casually tied behind her head. Although I have doubts about Gui Ge's character, his taste in choosing women is beyond doubt. This woman named Arseong in front of him would definitely be a top beauty on par with Juran if she had not fallen into prostitution. "I have something to take care of," Brother Gui said succinctly. "I'll leave this kid to you. Find a way to deal with him." Chapter 6. I think you are dirty. It was in that dark box again. I sat upright on the bed, looking at the eye-catching woman in front of me wearing an ancient-style long skirt that wrapped her curvy figure, and my breathing gradually became rapid. As an adult male, I have normal hormonal rushes. Having spent 2 consecutive days in extreme endurance, my resistance to this kind of thing has already dropped to an extremely low defense level. Just like I can't face Juran calmly. The woman in front of me also made me feel embarrassed. In order to control my reaction so that it wouldn't stand out, I turned my head away and tried to change the subject as much as possible. "What's your name?" "Peaceful." The woman's lower lip is relatively thick, and after applying bright red lipstick, she looks particularly charming. Is this a stage name? After all, I often hang out with Brother Gui, so I have some understanding of this informal footbath business. Is there any difference? And Ning raised her head and forced out an ambiguous smile. "There really is no difference," I said dejectedly. The transaction between her and me was just a transaction forced by Gui Ge's tyranny. Maybe after we walk out of the box, we will become strangers again. "Brother Xian, you are a good person." And Ning stood up on her own initiative, and when she approached me, a gust of rich fragrance made me dizzy. While I was in a trance, and Ning's hand suddenly rested on my chest. It is early summer and the weather is very hot. I was wearing a long-sleeved t-shirt and was caught off guard by a Ning. Her hands felt cool to the touch, and when they slid across the skin, it made one's spirits involuntarily excited. No. Reason triumphs over desire. At the last moment, I held Ning's hand. Let's just be like yesterday, okay? Oh. A hint of disappointment flashed across Ning's eyes. She withdrew her hand, sat right opposite me, and lit a long cigarette with a click. Brother Xian, you are indeed very special, and also very sultry. Ning's half-smile really makes people feel very depressed. I thought to myself, if it was Zhuran sitting opposite me, would I still be able to remain rational? When it comes to Zhuran, I prefer to think of her as an unattainable ice goddess. But the tranquility at this moment made me feel a trace of sadness. Judging from her behavior, perhaps she did not fall into prostitution due to force majeure. Whatever you say. I am angry. It seems like a joke now that I pleaded with our Xiang for her yesterday. She just wanted to make money. I'm not interested in you. Har har. Ning blew out a smoke ring leisurely and sneered, in our line of work, we have seen all kinds of men. But this is the first time I've met a soft man like you who is both a hypocrite and a weakling. Soft man? Is he a weak man, or is he just that kind of weak that can't be conveniently used? It is indeed difficult to tell just from Ning's expression and tone. There is one thing I am very clear about. At this moment, I was indeed very disappointed with Ning, and even hated her a little. Do I have to make it so clear? I stared at her coldly. I don't want to do it with you because I think you're dirty. You? It seemed that these words really hurt Ning's heart. Her face suddenly changed and she stood up. He stared at me fiercely for a long time, and finally, he just stomped his feet hard, turned around and prepared to leave. Mr. Liu, you will regret it. Threaten? I've never been afraid of this. When we were in school, Gui Ge and I were both members of the school basketball team, so we had good figures and great strength. Even many years after graduation, I would occasionally get together with that group of friends at a basketball court in the city. If you take action. I asked myself, I don't even take 2 or 3 ordinary people seriously. Therefore, I didn't take Ning's threats seriously. On the contrary, after she left, I felt relaxed all over. I folded my hands behind my head and stared at the ceiling with ambiguous lighting, thinking. Brother Gui mentioned that I should live in the same room with Zhuran, but considering Zhuran's arrogant temper, can he accept it? This moment. I began to doubt Gui Ge's ability. Da. There was a slight sound of footsteps outside the door. I opened my eyes and stood up, then I saw our Xiang with big wavy hair pushing the door open. It seems that people in this line of work like to look at someone with a half smile in their eyes. The same is true for our Xiang. You didn't do it again. Our Xiang's tone was full of sarcasm and confusion. No, I'm not interested. Our Xiang walked up to me with her full breasts and sat down with a plop. Suddenly, the balance bed was pressed down a little by her. She has the type of body that looks thin but actually has a lot of flesh on her body. According to Brother Gui, this kind of woman is extremely fun to play with. I don't know what this cool refers to either. Brother. Our Xiang turned her head and looked at me. You're making it very difficult for me to do this. Why? I sat up, interested. This store is invested by Gui Ge, so he is considered the big boss. Our Xiang must obey his management. Perhaps, he can find out some unknown secrets of Gui Ge from our Xiang. You don't understand Agui. Our Xiang shook her head calmly. He is the type who will not give up until he achieves his goal. I suggest you just follow Gui Ge's arrangements. It turned out that she was here to act as a lobbyist. I immediately lost interest, stood up, grabbed my clothes and prepared to leave. But just as I was about to put on my coat, a fragrant breeze blew into my nose from behind. Before I could react, there was a soft body in my arms. Do you think I'm dirty? Our Xiang raised her head, her delicate face full of dust. Sister A Xiang, you wouldn't do that. I shuddered and quickly waved my hand to push A Xiang away. I can accept Zhuran because her network of contacts is clean and she had only had one boyfriend before she married Gui Ge. But A Xiang, this woman who is more mature and charming than Ning, makes me feel scared. Who knows how many men she has been with? Brother Gui, are you her only one at the moment? Look how scared you are. Our Xiang pursed her lips and said, I won't tease you anymore. Since you are not in the mood to play, just leave now. This is definitely not a clean place. Until I left Jinhai Hui, Our Seong's last words kept echoing in my mind. What does she mean? I don't feel like going back to that home where I'm alone. It's too lonely and suffocating. However, when I was wandering on the street and opened my phone, I found that everyone I could contact seemed to be busy. It's time to cheer up. I sat there until dark, and finally made up my mind to accept the appointment for the time being and follow Gui Ge's arrangements. Once I get the money, everything will develop in the direction I expected. Gurgle. An indescribable feeling of hunger made me feel dazed for a moment. In the dim light, I seemed to hear a fierce voice. Chapter 7. Do we need to make a clear divide? That's the guy. Hurry up, brothers. Don't let him run away. When I turned around, I saw a few young men in shabby clothes surrounding me like ferocious monsters. Liu Xian, right? The man in the lead had a buzz cut, earrings, and an unhealthy pale skin. He kept fiddling with the phone in his hand. I heard you called my woman dirty. It was the person Ning called. I understood immediately, spread my hands, and said with a smile, what kind of society is this? You are still playing the game of Way of the Dragon. Fuck, what are you talking about? The man with earrings came up to me and reached out to hit me. Click. I reacted very quickly and grabbed his wrist immediately. Listen to my advice. If you lose the fight, you will be hospitalized. If you win, you will go to jail. There is no need for that. Fuck you. The man with the earrings kicked me suddenly, and I quickly let go of his wrist and took the opportunity to dodge. Brothers, get him for me. I have said before that I can easily deal with 2 or 3 people. But there were 5 or 6 of them at once, and all of them were troublemakers, so it was really difficult to deal with them. I tried my best to resist, but I couldn't avoid the pain of the fist hitting my face. Fortunately, these people were afraid of accidents and did not bring any weapons with them. Otherwise, I might have been lying in a pool of blood by now. Almost there, run. The man with the earrings kicked me in the stomach and took the opportunity to run away. It was only then that my strengths came into play. He pounced, strangled the man with earrings by the neck from behind, and tripped him to the ground with his right leg. Then, I pressed heavily on him. Fuck, let my boss go. Boy, let go or I'll beat you to death. Quick, pull his legs. The noisy sound kept ringing in my ears. I didn't care about anything else. I just knew that if I let go, the beating would be in vain. Even if it means getting hurt, the man with earrings must pay the price. I am in a small park with a large flow of people during the day. Some old men and women will do fitness, play chess, and so on here. At night, there is not even anyone dancing square dance here. Fortunately, a passerby saw the situation and called the police in time. Soon, a group of us were taken to a nearby police station. I've already figured out the whole story. Just sign it and I can call your family to pick you up. The police officer in charge of the case placed the transcript in front of me. The fact is very clear. It was the earring man and his gang who were deliberately looking for trouble, and they already had a record of fighting. This time, even if you pay for my medical expenses, you will still have to stay in the police station for a few days. Only. When I got my phone back, I suddenly felt confused. Who to call? My first thought was to find Li Ying, and I turned off the screen the moment I looked up her phone number. She should be in Hainan now, and maybe she's still doing a live broadcast. This matter really can't disturb her. Then it can only be Brother Gui. I was thinking about making a call when I heard a policeman shouting outside the door, Liu Xian, someone is here to pick you up. Brother Gui is so loyal. I rushed out the door holding the phone tightly, but I saw someone I didn't expect. Sister Zhuran? Why are you here? In front of Brother Gui, I always called her sister-in-law, but when Brother Gui was not around, I followed Li Ying and called her sister Zhuran. Argue called me. Zhuran walked up to me with a concerned look on his face. Come on, I'll take you to the hospital. Forehead. My face suddenly turned ugly. Brother Gui mentioned during the day that he would find an excuse for me to live with Zhuran. Could it be that? I dare not think about it. Because if all this was arranged by your brother, it would be terrible. How strong is his control over people? From letting Ning provoke me, to me verbally resisting, to him finding 2 gang members to fight with me, which resulted in me suffering some serious injuries. In this way, when Li Ying is not at home, I might be able to live in Zhuran's house naturally. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I shook my head repeatedly, denying the idea in my mind. Although I repeatedly said that it was nothing, the wound on my head should not be underestimated. That was caused by the corner of the foot that happened to hit when he fell. The wound was not big and the blood dried up quickly. Instead, his ankle might have been sprained, and he was limping when he walked. So, Joran helped me to the door and sat in her Cayenne. I'll take you to the hospital for a checkup first. If you need to be hospitalized, I'll arrange it for you. Joran was concentrating on steering the wheel and didn't notice my expression at all. The entire plot seems to be going in the direction I expected. Sister Joran, why didn't Brother Gui come? I tried to ask. He has to accompany several big clients on an out-of-town inspection for a few days and won't be back for the time being. Joran indeed had not anticipated the possible problems involved. I won't speak anymore. My heart was in my throat. I felt that the possibility of Gui Ge directing this scene was even greater. I never thought that Brother Gui, who has been working in the business world for several years, would become so strong. Is he really willing to wear a hat for his child, as smart as he is? Is there any problem here? No conversation along the way. Joran contacted his friends in the hospital and took me around to do all the tests. The final conclusion was that it was just a mild concussion, some blood loss, and a sprained foot. In other words, I need a few days of rest, but I don't need to be hospitalized. Joran was also stunned when he heard the doctor's advice. Da Liu, do you have other friends? Have. I shook my head helplessly, but they are all very busy. Forget it, Sister Joran, just take me home, I can do it myself. That won't work. Joran's eyes struggled for a moment. Wait for me a moment. Without waiting for my response, Joran left in her high heels. When she was leaving, I saw her take out her cell phone from her bag. Joran is 2 years older than me. She takes care of me and Li Ying like an older sister. When something like this happens, I can roughly guess who she's going to call. The first person I would give would definitely be Li Ying. I would explain the situation here in detail so that Li Ying would feel at ease. As for the second one, I must call Brother Gui. Hiss hiss hiss. I shuddered involuntarily. The content of Joran's call to Brother Gui might very well involve her taking the initiative to ask me to live at her house. I am speechless. Could it be that this was also part of Gui Ge's plan? Just as I was daydreaming, Joran came back with his bag. Da Liu, I've already made an agreement with Li Ying that you'll be staying at my place for the next few days. I was shocked. As expected, the result mentioned by the distinguished guest had really come true. It's too much trouble, Sister Joran, I'm going home. You are just too polite. Joran took my coat without saying anything. Given your previous relationship with Gui, do we still need to be so clear about what is between us? When I heard this, I suddenly felt extremely ironic. Chapter 8. Sorry, Sister Joran. There is really no need to make such a clear distinction between Gui Ge and me. Even my wife is ready to share it. Sister Joran, did you really not notice anything? This moment. I suddenly had the urge to tell him the truth. It can be said that Gui Ge's request for my help is actually a test of my humanity. Money, beauty, everything. How many men in the world can really resist such temptation? I can't seem to. Numbly, she followed Joran back to her villa. We don't have a servant at home. Joran has always liked to clean up by herself. She keeps the huge villa spotless, and it looks much neater than the 2-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment I rented. Da Liu, please sit on the sofa for a while. I'll go boil some water for you. The doctor prescribed some medicine which I need to take every day. After that, there is a special plaster for treating sprains, which needs to be applied before going to bed. I sat on the sofa, eyes slightly closed, my mind wandering. The air in the villa was filled with Joran's unique fragrance, which was very similar to her temperament, as noble as an orchid. Looking at Joran, who was always busy, I couldn't connect her with who she was last night. The contrast is too great. After a while, Joran brought the boiled water to me and said, wait until it cools down before drinking. I'll be out for a while. Sister Joran, don't worry about me. I can do it on my own. Got it. Joran turned and smiled at me, walked into the yard, opened the car door and got in. As I watched the Cayenne's taillights disappear into the night, I suddenly felt empty. It was as if something had suddenly drained me away. An endless feeling of loss filled my heart. Liying already knew about my injury, but she didn't send me a message to ask about it. She shouldn't be so busy during the live broadcast. Without Juran, I began to miss Liying terribly. Perhaps only she can comfort my wandering and helpless soul. I opened the TikTok platform and found Liying's profile picture in the follow list. I clicked on it and discovered that she had only posted one short video today and had not done any live broadcast. Open the video. Liying wore a belly-bearing swimsuit, showing off her beautiful figure to the fullest at the beach. The sea breeze blew her hair, making her look more artistic. This short video received thousands of likes within a few hours of being posted. No live broadcast, no phone calls. What is she doing? I really wanted to take the initiative to call and ask, but my inner pride made me unable to let go of my face. I'm hurt. She should be the one who took the initiative to call. I threw my phone onto the sofa in anger and swore to myself that if Liying didn't call me, I would never call her. I was in a depressed mood and lay on the sofa, as if I had lost my soul. It wasn't until I heard a horn outside that I sat up straight. Juran is back. She was carrying a pile of clothes and my daily necessities, and on her back was the guitar I hung on the head of the bed. A hobby I developed while in college. With this guitar, I have indeed captured the hearts of many girls. Of course, my life is not that messy, and I don't think I'm a scumbag. Those women who admire me are just my friends. Da Liu, take a look, what's missing? Juran ran quite fast, with some sweat on his forehead. My house is equipped with a fingerprint lock. Considering the relationship between Juran and Liying, it is not surprising that he knows the password. Sister Juran, thank you for your hard work. You're here again. Juran smiled and sorted out his clothes. I promised Juran that I would take good care of you and give her a healthy Liu Xian when she comes back. That's what you say, right? Looking at her happy expression, she obviously didn't realize that bringing me home was tantamount to inviting a wolf into their house. Do I feel guilty? Of course, there have been times when I wanted to back down. However, when I thought about the advice you gave me, I couldn't quit halfway. What's more, Juran herself also wants a child, and this has become her obsession. I was helping her, wasn't I? I tried to convince myself with this excuse, and calmly accepted the fact that I was controlled by Gui Ge and lived in Juran's house. It's late at night and everyone is asleep. Juran seemed to have fallen asleep. However, I lay in bed and couldn't sleep again. I don't know how long it was before I heard a clicking sound outside the door. It's Juran, could it be? It's so late, I should go to the bathroom, otherwise. I was ready to take action and create some misunderstandings to bring Juran and I closer. After confirming that Juran had entered the bathroom, I tiptoed out of bed, walked to the bathroom door, waved my hand and turned the doorknob. Sure enough, the door lock was broken. This must be another masterpiece of Gui Ge. Since he let me live here, he must have done something that might cause misunderstanding. Otherwise, I would never be able to accomplish anything with my indecisive character. The moment the door opened. Suddenly, Juran's panicked voice came to my ears, Da Liu, don't open the door. I pretended that I didn't have time to stop and rushed into the bathroom. Juran was sitting on the toilet. When our eyes met, I actually saw her face blush. I'm sorry, Sister Juran. I waved my hands to explain, but I had no intention of leaving. I was too anxious, so. Juran was calmer than I thought. She stared at me quietly, but I couldn't tell what she was thinking. How long do you plan to see me? Oh. I really didn't mean it. The pajamas couldn't completely cover her hips, so the place where my eyes fell was a little inappropriate. Faced with Juran's questioning, I was really a little panicked. Then why don't you go out? Okay, I'll leave now. I quickly limped out of the bathroom. The desired goal has been achieved. When I returned to my room, an indescribable feeling of guilt overwhelmed me. Sister Juran isn't really angry, is she? What if she kicks me out? I can't take such risks anymore. I have to plan more carefully. I don't know how long I was lost in thought, my vision became blurry, and I finally fell into a deep sleep. I slept very soundly that night. When I woke up, the sun was almost high in the sky. Ding-ling-dang. There was a knocking sound outside. Is there a thief? I shuddered and quickly got up and opened the door. At the bathroom door, Joran was holding a screwdriver and twisting the screws hard. No matter how frugal Joran was, she was, after all, a lady of noble status, and was unable to handle such trivial matters. I don't know how long she struggled. Her clothes were soaked with sweat, and the faintly visible small suspenders were constantly striking my eyes. I came to Joran's back with a dry mouth. Sister Joran, do you need help? Chapter 9. Let me introduce you to a friend. Huff. Joran, who had a focused expression, became extremely nervous because of my arrival. When he stood up, he didn't hold the screwdriver firmly in his hand and it fell to the ground with a bang. The harsh voice seemed like a mockery of our relationship. Only then did I realize how much psychological harm my rash actions last night had caused to Joran. Yes, I'm sorry. Sister Joran. I took a step back in embarrassment. I really didn't mean it. I wonder if Joran understood the double meaning of this apology. The air seemed to be stagnant for a few seconds, and finally, Joran was the first to break the silence. I really don't know how to do these things. Joran tried his best to act calm, bent down to pick up the screwdriver and handed it to me. You fix it, I'll go get some food. After we finish eating we have to go out again. She used our. I subconsciously asked, where to? Don't ask any more questions. Just fix it now. I was frightened the whole night last night and didn't fall asleep until 4 or 5 o'clock. It was almost noon when I woke up. Feeling guilty towards Joran, I carefully repaired the door lock that was obviously damaged, and then went to the bathroom to check everything. When I came out, Joran had already cooked 2 dishes. I took a look and found that they were all my favorite dishes: scrambled eggs with green peppers and spicy and sour shredded potatoes. Joran was still busy in the kitchen. I felt a little lost for what to do, so I wandered to the kitchen door and asked, Sister Joran, do you need my help? There's also a soup that will be ready soon. Joran replied to me without even turning his head. From my angle, I happened to see Joran's side profile. She was wearing a slim-fitting top and a pair of trousers that didn't show her long legs. Her hair was casually tied behind her head, and she looked like a diligent housewife. Watching her busy appearance, I couldn't help thinking that if I really became husband and wife with Joran, it might be the happiest thing in the world. She is cold as ice to outsiders. But to his own people, he gives everything he has without reservation. Over the years, thanks to Joran's care, Li Ying and I have been able to live a worry-free life. Only, Li Ying has never cooked and doesn't know how to cook. As a wife, she is obviously not as good as Joran. I don't know why I had such a comparison mentality. Perhaps, subconsciously, I had also imagined spending my life with Joran. It's a pity that fate plays tricks on us. The first person I met was Li Ying. Not long. Joran came out with a bowl of soup. The doctor said you need to supplement your nutrition. Come and try my pork rib soup. It's called soup. But the ingredients in the bowl were mostly meat and my favorite corn. I picked up the spoon, scooped up the soup and took a sip. It was a little bland and had a slight sweetness. At least it tasted better than the soup cooked in other restaurants. At this moment, I suddenly felt very jealous of Gui Ge. Even though he has such a virtuous wife that others can only dream of, he is willing to play with Joran at his will. What you can't get is the best. Could it be that a person like Brother Gui cannot escape such a despicable mental state? After what happened last night, there was an obvious rift between Joran and we remained silent during the meal. In the past, Joran would definitely talk about a lot of things. I couldn't help but wonder, if she was so concerned about just barging into the bathroom, if she knew that I peeked at her that night. I dare not imagine the result. With the care Joran is showing now, he might really turn against me on purpose. By then, I'm afraid we won't even be able to be friends anymore. No, it must not be exposed. I made up my mind secretly, and even felt the need to remind Brother Gui, but if this continues, how can I deal with Joran and make her accept having a child with me? I suddenly realized that Gui Ge's 500,000 or 1 million might be a pie in the sky. After dinner, Joran washed the dishes and told me to dress a little more formally. After that, I took out the clothes I used to wear to work and dressed myself up carefully. When I walked out of the door, I saw Joran waiting on the sofa in the hall. When he saw me coming, he nodded and smiled at me. Not bad, Da Liu, you have a good foundation. As long as you dress up seriously, your temperament will definitely be first class. In terms of appearance, there is really no comparison between Gui Ge and me. If Juran was really obsessed with looks, there would be no chance for Gui Ge. Being praised by Juran, I felt quite proud. I happily opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. I couldn't help but ask, "What are we going to do?" "Let me introduce you to a friend." Juran pretended to be mysterious and didn't explain. I was too lazy to ask any more questions, so I just sat in the passenger seat and checked my phone. Li Ying updated the video again. In the past, she always took photos by herself, and the angles were mainly from the front. After going there, it seemed that he had found a personal photographer who took pictures of Juran from all angles. Whether it is her back, figure, or face, Li Ying is impeccable in front of the camera. Their high-quality video shooting has indeed won her a lot of love from fans. It has only been more than an hour since it was posted, and the number of likes has exceeded the usual number. If she continues on this trend, perhaps Li Ying will one day become the internet celebrity she has always dreamed of. But what about me? I felt sad. Li Ying has succeeded, so how can I, who has accomplished nothing, be worthy of her? At this time, the KN turned a corner and arrived at the underground parking lot of a shopping mall. The friend you're going to meet later is the HR of a group. You better behave yourself. Juran reminded me, as long as he nods, it will be a sure thing for you to join this group. Is it because of your brother? I felt a little confused. In fact, given your status in the industry, it was completely a trust that he introduced me to a job. But I always felt that the living environment in a company that relies on acquaintances to get in must not be very good, so I directly rejected it. It has nothing to do with him. Juran shook his head. He's the elder brother I met when I was doing live streaming. He's a nice guy. Yeah. I nodded silently. Given my personality, I would definitely reject this kind of group with serious nepotism at the first opportunity. But I'm not sure what Juran is thinking at the moment, so I can only choose to follow her arrangements for now. Anyway, it's just a meeting, it doesn't mean you have to go to work. After a while, we appeared in a private room of a coffee shop on the third floor of the shopping mall. It's amazing that the decoration here has a petit bourgeois literary style, which is very popular among young urban women and men. Shortly after lunch, there were already quite a few customers sitting in the cafe, hanging out. Since I have difficulty walking, I let Juran go outside to order food. In such occasions, drinking coffee is secondary, the main thing is how to get things done. Just as I was thinking about how to refuse, the door of the coffee box was suddenly pushed open. Chapter 10 Mr. Yang's character. I thought that Juran's friend, no matter what his status was, should at least be a young man of similar age. However, the middle-aged man who came in made me a little stunned. The man's height was average, about 1.7 meters, with a particularly eye-catching big belly. Before anyone came in, my stomach had already entered the box. When he raised his head, he could clearly see a small strand of exceptionally long hair covering his half-bald forehead. Noticing that I was observing him, the man was stunned for a moment. Is this the box that Miss Shua booked? Yes. My impression of this group has been greatly damaged, and I am even less interested in taking up the position. You are Da Liu, right? The man sat down in the chair where Juran had sat, took out a cigarette, and lit it with a click. Miss Shua told me about your situation. Excuse me, the company you used to work for is not even on the same level as a large group like ours that operates nationwide. So, Miss Shua asked me to give you a supervisor position, and I'm in a difficult position. This guy is not hypocritical. He acts like a HR big shot right from the start. As for the supervisor, I didn't care about him at first. When I was about to refuse, I heard Juran's footsteps outside the door. The man sat up straight in a hurry, forced a smile on his face, and took the initiative to stand up to greet her. Oh my, how can you let such a beautiful lady like Miss Shua serve coffee? It's so ungentlemanly. It's okay, Mr. Yang. Juran slightly turned his body and just avoided Mr. Yang's dirty hands. Please take a seat, Mr. Yang. Har har har. President Yang didn't care about Juran's indifference at all. After sitting down, he smiled and said, Ms. Shua, I had a great time talking to your friend. I really felt like we had met too late. I have decided that there will be no obstacle for me to take the position of head of the marketing department that Miss Shua wants. Thank you, Mr. Yang. Juran was very happy and thanked Mr. Yang again and again. However, as I looked at Mr. Yang's increasingly wide smile, I was shocked. I thought that people in the workplace have many faces, but Mr. Yang's transformation was beyond my expectations. Did we talk? Apart from his initial arrogance and condescending contempt, I seemed to have no chance to speak. Is this what you call a pleasant conversation? Boss Yang. I didn't want Juran to be in vain with him, so I interrupted their conversation and said, "You seem to have misunderstood. I am not interested in your group." Da Liu, what are you talking about? His face suddenly changed. That's exactly what I meant. I stood up, holding onto the table. If we don't agree, there's no point in talking. Sorry, I can't continue chatting with someone as hypocritical as Mr. Yang. After saying that, I moved the chair away and insisted on walking out the door. Big Liu. Juran called me, and then said to Mr. Yang, "I'm sorry, Mr. Yang, something happened to my friend, and I'm not very happy." Har har har, it's okay. President Yang said with a smile, "For Miss Yua's sake, the position of head of the marketing department will be reserved for him for 3 days. Ms. Yua, when are you free so we can have a proper meal together? The meal must be serious. Whether the person is decent or not is debatable. This Mr. Yang obviously has ill intentions towards Juran. My leg injury made it very inconvenient for me to walk. I held onto the railing of the mall and struggled to get to the elevator. Just as he was about to go up, Juran caught up with him carrying a bag. Da Liu, wait for me. Juran pulled me back, panting and asking, "What's wrong with you? Can't you see the character of Mr. Yang?" I asked coldly. You? Juran was worried that someone might hear him, so he sighed and said, "Let's talk in the car." Yeah. I saw Juran was anxious, and I felt even worse. We have no relatives, and I have bad intentions towards her. Why is she so kind as to sell herself out to get me a job opportunity? The condemnation of my conscience made me feel even more uncomfortable. I wanted to call Brother Gui right away and tell him that I quit. But after hesitating for a long time, I put down my phone silently. I know Gui Ge's character too well. He will not give up until he achieves his goal. Even if I don't do this, someone else will do it. If it was an outsider who took advantage of Juran, would he continue to hurt her? No. I can't let Juran be hurt by a stranger. If there must be a shameless outcome, then I will be the bad guy. At this moment, I ignored the temptation of money and wanted from the bottom of my heart to free Juran from Gui Ge's control. Come to the car. Juran didn't start it directly, but asked me angrily, "Are you saying I'm blind?" What? I want to tell you that I know Mr. Yang better than you do. Juran's expression was particularly stern when he spoke. This kind of temperament that kept strangers away made me feel very unfamiliar. Before I met Gui, I did live broadcasts like Li Ying. At that time, Mr. Yang proposed that if I followed him, he would give me 500,000 yuan and help me solve all my debt problems. From then on, I knew that this person had evil intentions. Juran and Li Ying met during a live PK broadcast. They had similar personalities, so they moved from online to offline. Before this, no one knew what Juran had experienced in the past. Seeing that I didn't respond, Juran continued, "I can resist the temptation of 500,000, so how could I fall into his hands? As long as he can solve the work problem, the most I can do is to accompany him for a meal." At this moment, Juran's aura was extremely powerful. It seemed that a shrewd and greasy man like Mr. Yang was completely out of his control. Da Liu, go to work. Juran's voice softened a lot. Li Ying needs a family. Even for her, you have to endure some social injustice and make yourself more flexible. It turns out that everyone knows my personality. This is how Gui Ge is. Today, Juran has once again pointed out the flaws in my character. Yes, I am a somewhat conceited person, and I have a bit of arrogance in my bones. I feel that nothing can stump me. In fact, after working in the workplace for so many years, I have faced the reality. What Juran didn't know was that compared to job opportunities, what I needed more was money. A startup capital that is enough to get me out of trouble and start a business according to my own wishes. I'm sorry, I can't bear it. I said this in a huff. The disappointment on Juran's face made people feel distressed, but I could only stick to my own ideas and not follow hers. This is a game. I want to get the money, but I also want to protect her. Only by having a child can you have the best of both worlds. With a buzzing sound, the roar of the engine interrupted my thoughts. Juran stepped on the accelerator and the car rushed out like an arrow. Chapter 11. Did Li Ying betray me? If I ask myself honestly, there is also an adventurous element in my character. However, sitting in Juran's car gave me a sense of horror. The car is going too fast. I don't know if it's because Juran was really angry, he changed his usual driving habits and the accelerator made a buzzing sound. It took nearly 30 minutes to get here. When I got back, it was halved. Only after I parked the KN steadily in the yard did I breathe a sigh of relief, feeling as if I had saved my life. Juran ignored me, got out of the car and closed the door in one go. Only a back figure was left as he gradually walked up to the second floor. I just rejected a job. Are you so angry? I was very surprised. I slept too much in the morning, so I didn't feel sleepy at all when I returned to the villa. I lay on the sofa board and played with the guitar for a while. I started learning guitar in high school. I have become quite skilled in all kinds of playing techniques. When I was in college, I participated in a campus singing competition. Although I didn't win the prize due to some shady dealings, that competition helped me gain a lot of fans. Li Ying once joked with me, saying that if I was willing to humble myself and choose to work in the live streaming industry, I would definitely be able to build up my account. What a pity. I don't have acting talent in my genes. I can't remain calm and cheerful in front of the camera. The live streaming career is destined to be out of my reach. The sky gradually darkened. Juran still stayed in his room and didn't come out for the whole afternoon. I seriously suspect that she didn't sleep well last night and was taking advantage of the afternoon to make up for her sleep. The pain in my feet made me not even think about getting up and turning on the light. I lay lazily on the sofa, staring at the ceiling with lifeless eyes. I am planning my own business. Ding dong. The phone, which had been black all the time, suddenly lit up. I picked it up and saw that it was a message to add a friend. I clicked on the person's profile picture and found that the information column was blank. It was obviously a newly registered account. Who could it be? Out of curiosity, I clicked through. The next moment, my phone started to ring with notification sounds, ding dong, ding dong. After a while, the information finally stopped. I opened the message and took a quick look at it, and it immediately made my blood boil and I was filled with anger. Those are a few photos. The heroine was Li Ying. She was standing in the lobby of a star-rated hotel, hugging a strange man tightly. Who are you? The message received no response. I was so angry that I directly chose to make a voice call to the other party, but unfortunately, no one answered the call. After dialing several times in a row, I finally came back to reality, found Li Ying's account number, and clicked to dial. Again and again. But the same result was obtained. I once joked with Li Ying that when you don't reply to my messages, I feel like you are sleeping with another man. Unexpectedly, what he said came true. Li Ying and I actually made it to this day. By the way, brother Gui. He mentioned that a friend he knew organized this event and had ideas about Li Ying. Could it be him? I immediately looked up Gui Ge's number and called him. This time, someone finally answered. The sound of roaring machines and the laughter of many people could be heard over the phone. Brother Gui is busy. On the phone, Brother Gui's tone was still as steady as an old dog. Brother, you called me so quickly, didn't you get it done? What's your friend's name and where does he live? I tried my best to control my anger. Who? It's the friend who organized this event in Hainan. Oh, you mean Mr. Chin? Brother Gui breathed a sigh of relief. We are just business friends, not that familiar with each other. But if you want to find out, I can ask for you. ASAP. After hanging up the phone, my body couldn't stop shaking in the dark. Li Ying, did she really betray me? No, definitely not. Click. The sudden light made me dizzy. I raised my hand to block it, and between my fingers I saw Juran's surprised expression. What happened? Why didn't you turn on the light? I don't know why. When I saw Juran, my endless anger turned into grievance. Tears could not be stopped from gushing out, staring at Juran's curvy figure, choking and saying, Sister Juran, I seem to be losing Li Ying. Impossible. Juran's face was slightly flustered. Tell me, what happened? I unlocked my phone and placed Li Ying's photo in front of Juran. It was not until this moment that I realized how important Li Ying was to me. I want to make money, even at the cost of violating ethics and morals and bearing the condemnation of my conscience. It is just to give Li Ying a home after getting the money. However, the dream had just begun when Li Ying killed it with her own hands. Zhuran held the phone and looked at it for a long time. It must be a misunderstanding. I'll ask her. Zhuran took out his cell phone and tried various ways to contact Li Ying, but unfortunately, the call still showed no one answered. Da Liu, don't worry. Turning back, Zhuran began to comfort me again. Li Ying and I have known each other for 2 or 3 years. From what I know about her, if she doesn't want to be with you, she will definitely tell you in advance. She's not the kind of girl with a messy private life. Da Liu, do you understand what I mean? Clear. I have lived with Li Ying longer, so how can I not understand her character? But people will change. I have accomplished nothing in all these years and have not given Li Ying the life she wanted. Now, there is a man who is better and richer than me in front of her. What reason does she have to refuse? In other words, I don't know what kind of benefits are promised here. The panic of losing Li Ying made me feel empty all of a sudden, as if my soul had been sucked out. Da Liu, don't be sad. When something like this happened, Zhuran was at a loss for words and didn't know how to comfort me. Li Ying may be busy. She will call back when she is done. Can you give her a little more confidence? Oh. I sneered in my heart. Should I wait until she finishes having sex with another man before calling back? This is a bit too ridiculous. Sister Zhuran, if it was Brother Gui, would you be so calm? Agui. Zhuran's face darkened. He already has it, doesn't he? Hiss. I took a deep breath and suddenly calmed down. It turns out that Zhuran, who seemed to know nothing, actually knew everything about Gui Ge's chaotic life. Zhuran has never been a naive person. But she cherishes her current life and hides all her dissatisfaction. I suddenly wanted to ask her, does she know that your brother asked me to help him have a baby? Unfortunately, before I could say anything, Zhuran suddenly stood up and left. Sister Zhuran. I shouted through gritted teeth. Chapter 12. Da Liu, are you crazy? I don't even need to look in the mirror to imagine how miserable I look at this moment. As a grown man, crying in front of a woman is indeed ungraceful. But, I feel heartbroken. Da Liu, don't think too much. Zhuran's eyes were very complicated, as if he felt distressed, and as if he felt it was not worth it for me. Everyone can see your feelings for Li Ying. I believe Li Ying will not give up on you easily. The main thing for you now is to cheer up. I understand the truth. But people will change after all. At this moment, I just want to numb myself and stop my mind from being filled with Li Ying's image. Sister Zhuran, do you have any wine? I raised my hand to wipe away the tears on my face and begged, I want to drink. Okay. Zhuran agreed readily. I remember Zhuran once said that she hated drunk men, and even chose to break up with Gui Ge because of this. If your career is successful, you are bound to have to attend social gatherings. This is where the rift between the two of them arose. Once, Brother Gui came home late at night after drinking. Perhaps his mind was overwhelmed by desire, and he broke into Zhuran's room reeking of alcohol. No one knew how much pain Zhuran endured that night. She only revealed a little bit when she was chatting with Li Ying later. It seemed that her breasts were violently damaged, resulting in serious sequelae. Although Gui Ge used various methods to apologize afterwards. However, Zhuran was never able to get out of the shadow. According to Gui Ge, every time they had sex, Zhuran was very resistant to Gui Ge touching her chest. And tonight, in order to stop me from being immersed in sadness, Zhuran ran to the supermarket outside for the first time and brought back a few bottles of red wine. Da Liu, is red wine okay? No problem. Any alcohol will do as long as I can get drunk. I forced myself to sit up and opened the red wine. Before Zhuran brought the glass, I raised my head and drank the whole bottle of red wine. You can't drink like that. Zhuran came over hurriedly with 2 wine glasses in his hand and held my hand. The cool and soft touch woke me up instantly. I'm sorry, Sister Zhuran. I understand how you feel, but no matter how sad you are, you still have to take care of your body. Zhuran's tone was always gentle. He opened the glass of red wine with light movements and poured 2 half glasses. Da Liu, can we chat? Zhuran sat right in front of me, wearing home clothes with a neckline that was not too low, but rather large. When you sit up straight, you can clearly see the clavicles on both sides. Was it popular on online videos some time ago to raise fish using clavicles? Joran's collarbone looks whiter than those that have been beautified, and is more desirable to be touched. However, as long as Joran leans forward slightly, the scenery underneath his clothes will be accidentally revealed. I know she didn't mean it, she was just so concerned that she didn't notice the change in my gaze. Da Liu, I have talked to Li Ying many times, and she is indeed not very satisfied with your current situation. Joran drank very politely. Every time he picked up the glass, he would just take a small sip. Maybe it's because I can't hold my liquor. After drinking 2 cups in a row, her cheeks became rosy and her eyes became blurry. She held her chin in her hands and looked at me like an innocent little girl. As a friend, I hope you can cheer up. I've really tried my best. I almost told him about Gui Ge. For Joran, I can accept Gai's shameless request. He even wanted to get the reward promised by Gui Ge, even at the cost of hurting Joran. Isn't the purpose of doing business to give Li Ying everything she wants? But why is she unwilling to wait a little longer? I don't know whether you work hard or not. Joran wouldn't normally say such hurtful things, it was obviously the effect of the alcohol. But from my perspective, I can only see that you have been living in a daze during this period. You really should find a job. You don't know how charming you are when you exude strong confidence as a workplace elite. Forehead. I was stunned. Brother Gui said that Joran had secretly liked me before he started dating her. At that time, I was in the rising period of my career, having worked my way up from a small clerk to a management position, and I was very generous in what I said and did. What Joran liked must have been me at that time. Only now. It's hard to put it into words. I picked up the wine glass and took another big gulp. Sister Joran, do you think there is still a chance for me and Li Ying? There must be. Joran nodded confidently. As long as you cheer up, you will still be radiant. Joran will definitely not be able to reject a charming you. Joran's words rekindled my passion for life. While she wasn't paying attention, I snatched the last bottle of red wine and drank it in one gulp without hesitation. Da Liu, are you crazy? Click. I threw the empty wine glass on the table and staggered to my feet. Sister Joran, I've decided. I'll go to work tomorrow. Very good. Joran's expression changed from anger to joy. I discussed it with President Yang this afternoon. He will solve all the obstacles in the company. When you arrive at Dian Group tomorrow, just go find him directly. It turned out that Joran was not resting in the afternoon, but was discussing my affairs with Mr. Yang. I was touched and filled with endless guilt towards her. She is so nice, why would I want to hurt her? Joa, Sister Joran, do you have any more wine? No more. Joran saw that I couldn't speak clearly, so he came over to support me without any precautions. I'll help you go upstairs to rest. Oh. I feel a little lost inside. My ankle was injured, and I had drunk a lot of wine, so I couldn't walk alone. When Joran supported me, she could only try her best to use her tall body to support me and keep me moving forward. The weather is hot and dry. We all wore thin clothes. Our skin was pressed tightly together, and I could clearly feel the soft touch coming from Joran's body. Somewhere in the body, a fire was burning uncontrollably. I turned my head and stared at Joran's profile, and found that her face was slightly red, her breath was as fragrant as orchid, and her whole body was full of charming femininity. Da Liu, you are too heavy. Joran finally helped me into the room and used all his strength to help me sit on the bed. You take a rest first, I'll get you some water. She knew that drunk people tended to be thirsty at night and needed water to relieve the thirst. Only. When she turned around, I could no longer suppress the fire in my heart. I suddenly raised my hand and grabbed Joran's hand. Sister Joran. Da Liu, what are you doing? Joran subconsciously wanted to pull his hand back. I'm sorry. After shouting this almost like a roar, I no longer cared about propriety and morality, and threw Joran onto the bed with all my strength. Then, I threw myself on him. Chapter 13. Let's break up. Da Liu, let me go. I'm not Li Ying. Joran struggled hard in my arms, but how could her little strength support my heavy body? There was a tearing sound. I tore her shirt uncontrollably, and in an instant, 2 pieces of snow white came into my eyes. That night, I stood at the door and saw Joran's figure. But it was in a dark environment, relying only on the street lights outside, so it was not very clear. When I saw it up close, the powerful impact instantly overwhelmed me. I don't care about friendship or love anymore. At this moment, there was only one thought in my mind, rushing towards her. Da Liu, calm down. Zhuran's voice was filled with panic. Do you know what you are doing? Are you doing this to our Gui and Liying? Da Liu, you are going to destroy the relationship between us with your own hands. Gradually, Zhuran no longer had the strength to struggle. He lay on the bed with a deathly pale face and tears all over his face. But I still seemed unaware and was no longer satisfied with tearing her shirt. With one hand pressing on Zhuran's shoulder, the other hand began to move downwards, and soon, I touched the belt on his pants. Just as he was about to pull it apart. Beep, beep, beep. I was awakened by a rapid phone ring. I subconsciously turned my head to look at the phone that had fallen to the ground. The words, Liying, were clearly displayed on the screen. I felt like I was struck by lightning. I slapped myself hard, picked up my phone in panic and ran downstairs. Liying, where are you? I just finished filming and I'm at the hotel getting ready for bed. Liying's voice was very calm on the phone. What's wrong that made you make so many calls? Hiss. I was secretly shocked. She is clearly the one at fault, why should I be so timid? I lost my temper and asked in a harsh voice, were you with young Master Qin tonight? How did you know? Liying was very surprised. The photos have been sent to me. Do you think I can continue to pretend to be blind? Who's so busy? Liying's tone was full of complaints. Da Liu, please send me the photos. Is it necessary? I sneered and retorted, you two were hugging each other so affectionately in the photo, don't you feel any guilt at all? Liying, what do you think of me? If you really think I'm not worthy of you, then fine, I won't bother you anymore and we'll break up. Ever since I got together with Liying, I secretly vowed to protect her all my life and would never be the first to break up. But tonight, paralyzed by alcohol and anger, I reluctantly uttered the two words that made me tremble. On the phone, Liying was silent for a moment, and just when I was getting impatient, Liying spoke. Just one word, okay. Swish. All the strength in my body seemed to be drained away in an instant, and I burst into tears while holding the hung-up phone. The love that I used my youth to protect eventually left me. I might even not be able to see the love of my life for the last time. Where should I go in the future? There was a rustling sound coming from upstairs. In the darkness, Zhuran seemed to have no interest in caring about me anymore. After going to the bathroom to wash up, he turned around and went into his room. Bang. The moment the door closed, my heart was completely broken. It's as if I've been abandoned by the whole world. Without Liying, what's the point of all my efforts? I picked up my phone, opened Gui Ge's chat box, and quickly typed a few words, I give up. Brother Gui seems to be busy and has not replied. And so, I sat alone in the hall until dawn. The sun had just risen when I heard the noise Zhuran made again. I looked up and saw her walking to the handrail on the second floor with an expressionless face, staring down at me. After all these years of being together, this was the first time I saw contempt for me in her eyes. Boss Yang called and asked you to be at the company on time at 9 o'clock. Zhuran's voice was as cold as her expression, whether you want to do it or not, talk to her yourself. Obviously. Because of what happened last night, Zhuran no longer wants to interfere in my life. She came out to remind me, perhaps just to give an explanation to President Yang. This is ridiculous. Have I gotten to the point where everyone hates me? There is still about an hour until 9 o'clock. I quietly got up, limped to my room, took out all my clothes, packed them up and put them on my back. It's not a lot of stuff and can be carried on one shoulder. But the loneliness I felt when I left was driving me crazy. Even though he knew that I had difficulty moving, Zhuran had no intention of coming out to see me off. It seems that she is really sad. I carried my guitar on one shoulder and my clothes on the other and left this place where my dreams were shattered. I didn't go home. I have already broken up with Liying, and that home may no longer belong to me. I took a taxi to the reception desk of Daryan Group and asked the girl at the front desk, is Mr. Yang here? Do you have an appointment? My name is Liu Xian, and I have an appointment with Mr. Yang at 9 o'clock. Wait a minute, I'll check. The girl at the front desk looked down at the computer and searched for a while. She must have found my appointment and nodded, Mr. Liu, this way, please. Large groups have their own management system, and external personnel can only be brought in by employees within the group. However, the sight of me carrying a guitar and a backpack attracted a lot of puzzled looks along the way. I can't stand it anymore. I always feel like the whole world is laughing at me. Before entering the elevator, I turned to the girl at the front desk and asked, "Can I find a place to put my things temporarily? Just leave it to me." The girl at the front desk kept smiling and said, "After you meet with Mr. Yang, you can come to the front desk to pick it up." "Thanks." I nodded and walked into the elevator alone. The elevator door reflected a man with red and swollen eyes and a haggard face. He was obviously only 30 years old, but with his unkempt appearance, he looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. Without love or friendship, it's time for me to start over. I no longer have a home in this city. If I stay here, my life will become a joke. At this moment, I decided to give up everything in the city and return to my hometown in the next county. My parents are there, at least they won't throw me away at will. After a while, I came to the door of the administrative department's reception room with a haggard look on my face. I came here to reject Mr. Yang's job offer and had no intention of leaving a good impression on anyone in the company. So, seeing that Mr. Yang was interviewing a candidate, I waited at the door for a while. After the applicant got up and left, I pushed the door open and walked in. "Boss Yang." "Wait a minute." President Yang interrupted me directly. "Ms. Zhua has something for me to tell you." Chapter 14, Joining Unnegotiated Group. Zhuran had something to say, but he didn't tell me directly. Instead, he relayed it through an outsider like Mr. Yang. How disappointed she must be in me. I'm ready to be teased and ridiculed by Mr. Yang. Ms. Zhua said that only cowards would run away. A truly strong person would stand up again where he fell. It can be seen that President Yang treats Zhuran very seriously. When he relayed this sentence, his expression was not as greasy as usual. It's obvious. Zhuran guessed what I was thinking. She relayed this sentence to me because she wanted me to get up from where I fell. I was deeply moved. Even though I had hurt her, she still put herself in my shoes. How many friends like this can you meet in your life? I have already lost Li Ying, should I keep Zhuran as a friend? As I frowned and thought, President Yang suddenly spoke again. "Xiao Liu, don't be too nervous. Next, I want to talk about my own views." "You say?" I said seriously. "Ms. Zhua is indeed the most perfect woman I have ever seen, and I do have many dirty thoughts about her." This sentence surprised me a lot. Few people can speak of shamelessness so openly. But she has always been very proud and has never been content to be just a housewife. So what? "So, Xiao Liu, I envy you very much. After all, the number of men who can get Miss Zhua's care can be counted on one hand." President Yang's expression became serious again. "I don't know what happened to Miss Zhua, but I feel that she needs help now. After all this talk, we still haven't gotten to the point." Just when I was getting impatient, Mr. Yang suddenly extended his hand to me sincerely and said, "Stay and join Dayun. Together we can help Miss Zhua out of her predicament." Looking at that powerful big hand, I was suddenly stunned. Mr. Yang is just an outsider, and the chance of meeting Zhuran is very slim. He was able to accurately grasp Zhuran's predicament and wanted to help her. And me. Although he had received so many favors from Zhuran, he had never thought of protecting her. As a friend, I am very unqualified. To be honest, Mr. Yang's honesty touched me deeply. I have no place to live. I explained my dilemma directly. Leaving that home and renting a house would cost a lot of money. It just so happens that these are what I lack. The little money I have left can only support my daily life for a few days at most. After that, I had nothing. There is a staff dormitory near the company. It's a bit crowded, but it can be your shelter for the time being. President Yang smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will get you into working order as soon as possible. Others need an internship period, but you don't. If your team achieves results, you can get a corresponding share of the commission." That is to say, Mr. Yang has arranged everything. All I need to do is give a nod and I'll get a handsome salary next month. You're right, we should do something for Zhuran. Inspired by Mr. Yang, I did have the idea of protecting Zhuran. No matter what conspiracy your brother has towards her, I must counter it and resolve the harm your brother does to her. This may be my only chance to repay Zhuran. It's been a pleasure working with you. Mr. Yang's big hand held mine tightly. Thanks. I know that Mr. Yang's willingness to cooperate is not referring to the work aspect, but to the matter of protecting Zhuran. This greasy middle-aged man who looked down on me as soon as we met made me feel good for the first time. After agreeing with Mr. Yang on the time to go to the dormitory in the afternoon, I returned to the lobby on the first floor and took away my guitar and luggage. It took me half an hour to take the bus to the place where Li Ying and I rented. The inside was clean and tidy, and all the garbage bags were replaced with new ones. These are naturally Zhuran's contributions. However, looking at the room that is destined to no longer belong to me, I still find it hard to let go. The heartache almost suffocated me. In this state of near despair, I found all my belongings as quickly as possible and paid all the water and electricity bills as Li Ying had instructed. Then, I stood silently at the door and carefully looked at the exhibits in the house. I want to keep all of this in my mind, either as a memory for the future or as motivation to get myself back on my feet. This is my past after all, and I want to throw it all away. Click. The moment the door closed heavily, my heart was empty again. I even didn't know how I had lunch at the small restaurant that Li Ying and I often went to, and how I arrived downstairs of Diane Group in a daze. Just arrived not long ago. Then I saw a short-haired girl, carrying a bag, rushing over. Hello, is this Manager Liu? The little girl should be a new intern, she is full of energy and vigor. Hello, my name is Wang Rui. Wang Rui pushed up her glasses and held out her hand to me. Boss Yang asked me to take you to the staff dormitory. Thanks. Hey, Manager Liu, you don't have to be polite to me. President Zheng asked me to learn something from you. Wang Rui is very lively and talkative. During the more than 10-minute journey, she never stopped to speak. Through her introduction, I learned that I was assigned to Group 2 of the marketing department, replacing the only remaining position of manager. Daryan Group is engaged in software projects and serves high-end customers. And I need to lead the team members to maintain the customer resources that originally belonged to Group 2. I have a feeling that the reason why Wang Rui said so much might be because she was reminded by General Manager Yang to let me integrate into the work as soon as possible. Since you have decided to join the job. I accepted this kindness with a smile. Manager Liu, look, this is our dormitory. Our dormitory. I was a little confused. Do men and women live together here? The so-called staff dormitory is actually a house with 4 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. I don't know how many people live there. From the layout of the hall, I can tell it's a bit messy. Yeah. Wang Rui smiled and nodded. The dormitory has 2 people in 1 room. It is a temporary housing solution for employees from other places. But most of the people living here are interns. They have just arrived in this city and their income is not high. They need free accommodation. After our old employees in Group 2 made some money, they moved out and lived on their own a long time ago. 2. The treatment at Daryan Group is not bad. If you have money, you naturally want to crowd into such a place. Manager Liu, you and Brother Zhen will stay in this room. Wang Rui pushed open the door of a room near the window, and immediately a sour and smell hit her in the face. Cough, cough, cough. I choked and tears streamed down my cheeks. Brother Zhen, how could he make the room look like this? Chapter 15, Being a Fulfilled Worker. Men seem to be born with a bad habit of not tidying up. When we were in school, Gui Ge and I would make our dormitory very messy. However, our basic sense of shame prevents us from remaining indifferent. So we drew lots to decide who would do the cleaning of the dormitory once a week. Later, when I had Li Ying, I moved off campus with her and I no longer did housework. It is easy to go from frugality to extravagance. It is difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. I was used to living in a clean room, and when I suddenly saw the messy bed in front of me, I felt very lost. If Wang Rui hadn't been with me, I guess I'd just run away with my luggage. Brother Zhen is an intern programmer and has a carefree personality. Wang Rui had obviously never been to Brother Zhen's room before, and was very surprised by this. How about this, we still have time in the afternoon, Manager Liu, please sit down for a while, and I'll clean up the room. Let's go together. I rolled up my sleeves and took out a mask that I hadn't used for a long time from my suitcase and put it on. There's no way, the smell inside is really too pungent. The first thing to do is to ventilate the room. Faced with the mountains of messy clothes in the room, as well as the snack bags and instant noodle buckets thrown everywhere, I felt like I had nowhere to put my feet. Manager Liu, please pull me over. I'll crawl over. Although Wang Rui was very reluctant to touch Shin Ji's dirty clothes, she had no choice. I am her immediate superior, and you can't just throw all the dirty work onto me. Wang Rui is a girl with very ordinary looks, with a round face and thick eyes. She looks a bit like a little homegirl. However, when I grabbed her body and pushed her into her clothes, I felt that her muscles were surprisingly strong. Although her body looks small, she can burst out with great energy. Huff, huff. Wang Rui was panting and finally walked around a pile of old clothes and came to the window that had not been opened for who knows how long. After struggling for a while, I finally opened the doors and windows. When the wind from outside blew in, Wang Rui and I couldn't wait to take a deep breath. Probably considering the situation of 2 people living together, or 3 or 4 people living together, each room is equipped with 2 bunk beds. Brother Jean must be quite lazy, so he sleeps on the bed near the door to make it convenient for him to go in and out and turn off the lights. And on the bed inside, there were a lot of garbage bags and other things piled up. The whole afternoon, Wang Rui and I were busy cleaning the room. We used 4 or 5 large garbage bags that were more than half a person's height before we finally cleaned up all the garbage in the room. Wang Rui is a good girl who enjoys life. He kept fetching clean water and carefully wiped the floor, window glass, walls, and bed. As the sky gradually darkened, the huge workload finally came to an end. Wang Rui and I were both very tired and sat limply on the bed that belonged to me. You're not even to mention. Being busy at work really makes me forget a lot of worries. That afternoon, I didn't think of Li Ying or Zhuan. When one's soul becomes enriched, all sadness and grief will disappear. I looked at the newly renovated room and couldn't help feeling emotional. This might be where my second dream in life begins. I don't want to be depressed anymore. Commit to work and be a fulfilling worker. Brother Xian. After spending an afternoon together, Wang Rui and I became much closer. Now I call her Sherue. And she called me Brother Xian. She wiped the sweat that was about to dry on her forehead, stared at the phone, smiled bitterly and shook her head. I have to trouble you with something. What? I am willing to give every help to my first subordinate. I was so busy cleaning that I forgot the time to get off work. Wang Rui asked me nervously, can you please tell the HR department that we are going out on a field trip today? Originally, this kind of thing could be dealt with by simply telling the supervisor. It's just that I just joined and I'm not very familiar with the human resources department. Apart from Mr. Yang, I don't know anyone. Anyway, General Yang and I are now comrades in the same camp. If I need to ask him for help, this old guy probably won't refuse. As I was talking, I took out my cell phone and then I remembered that I had forgotten to leave Mr. Yang's phone number. After being away from work for such a long time, I am no longer used to this group management system. I smiled bitterly and looked up. Xia Rui, what's Mr. Yang's phone number? I have it here. Wang Rui quickly took out her cell phone and found Mr. Yang's number. I punched in the number and called. Da Liu, have you met your colleagues from sales team 2? Not yet. I briefly described the situation. President Yan was very upset when he heard this. This Xuzhen really doesn't care about the company's image. I'll have to ask the department to come up with a hygiene regulation for the employee dormitories. Finished. When I heard that President Yang was going to make a big deal out of this matter, I immediately realized that I might have offended Xuzhen unintentionally. I hung up the phone with a heavy heart, and when I looked up, I met Wang Rui's sparkling eyes. There was even a hint of admiration in the way she looked at me. Brother Xian, you must have a very good relationship with President Yang. Isn't it just a phone call? How does it show that we have a good relationship? I was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. You don't know, Mr. Yang is known to be impartial and ruthless. Wang Rui lowered her voice and said like a thief, if anyone else heard that I was using working time to do housework, they would definitely be criticized. Then why didn't you remind me just now? I was speechless. Wang Rui, who seems to be honest, actually has her own little thoughts in her heart. I forgot. Wang Rui stuck out her tongue, took the opportunity to change the subject, pointed at the guitar standing on the bedside and asked, Brother Xian, can you still play the guitar? A little. I admire boys who can play musical instruments the most. They seem so cool to me. If it weren't for the relationship between superiors and subordinates, Wang Rui would probably have encouraged me to play a song. I really didn't have any thoughts about it, otherwise I would have taken the initiative to do something like playing the guitar. Gurgle. After being busy all afternoon and not eating anything, I actually felt a little hungry. I stood up and said, "Come on, I'll treat you to dinner." Wow, Brother Xian is so nice. Wang Rui jumped high and followed me out. Just at this moment, there was a sudden click from the door of the room, and then a series of figures walked in. "Xiao Rui, why didn't I see you this afternoon?" A girl in a suit took off her coat with a tired look on her face. "I'm so tired, order me a cup of milk tea." "Okay, Sister Hui Wen." Wang Rui immediately took out her mobile phone and opened the food delivery app. At this time, "Give me a drink too." A man wearing black rimmed glasses, with an untidy beard, slightly bald hair, and a lot of fat on his belly walked in. "Xiao Rui, who is this?" Chapter 16. I will go to Fuching tomorrow and meet you. Let me introduce it to you all. For some reason, Wang Rui looked so proud when she talked about me. This is the new supervisor in our department. His name is Liu Xian. We all call him Brother Xian. "Hello, Brother Xian. So, I have a companion now." Xuzhen was the most active and did not have the shy character of a programmer at all. "Brother Zhen, I'm not saying anything bad about you, but you really need to pay more attention to hygiene in the future." Wang Rui puffed her cheeks and accused, "You don't even know that Brother Xian and I didn't do anything this afternoon. We were just helping you clean up your room." "What? Cleaning the room? Oh, no, my cockroach." Xuzhen's face changed drastically and he ran into the room wailing. "Xiaoqiang, where is my Xiaoqiang? Xiaoqiang, please don't die." Seeing him constantly searching under the bed, I knew without a doubt that Xiaoqiang were the dozens of cockroaches I threw away. This kid is too dramatic. It's over. It's over. Xuzhen walked out with trembling lips. "Brother Xian, do you know how important Xiaoqiang is to me? On countless sleepless nights, Xiaoqiang always accompanied me to talk, smoke with me, and to feel lonely. He also accompanied me." I frowned slightly. "Still accompanying you to masturbate with a small umbrella, right?" When I was cleaning up in the afternoon, I found a lot of used umbrellas under the bed, which made me feel sick. Fortunately, Wang Rui had been wiping the wall. Without her noticing, I swept all the small umbrellas into the trash can. "Hey, Brother Xian, don't be so blunt." Facing the contentious looks from several girls, Xuzhen lowered his head in embarrassment. "How about this, Brother Xian, since you chased my Xiaoqiang away, you can treat me to a meal as an apology, okay? I've acted in so many dramas, and it turns out it was all for this reason. I was going to take Wang Rui out for dinner anyway, so there was no problem with adding Xuzhen. What's more, since we will all live under the same roof in the future, it will be easier to build good relationships." Just as I nodded, the other girls all jumped up excitedly. "Thank you, Brother Xian, for treating us." Including Wang Rui, there is a girl left in total. Including Xuzhen and I, there are 8 of us in total, so we naturally can't just have a simple meal. "Brother Xian, how about we go downstairs and have some barbecue?" Wang Rui said hesitantly. "Okay." I thought about the balance in my cell phone and it was probably around 1,000 yuan, which should be enough for a barbecue meal. As for the future, we'll talk about it when the time comes. After all, we had just moved into this dormitory, and I didn't want to give them the impression that I was stingy, so I just waved my hand and led them to the kebab stand. What I didn't expect was that this group of people would drink non-stop. They ate and drank and the party lasted until late at night. When the bill came, it was exactly over 900. All I had left was a few dozen dollars. Too cruel. The corners of my mouth twitched secretly, and I stared at the drunken backs of a group of people and gritted my teeth. It's obvious that they want to rip me off, right? Having said that, I don't have much resentment towards them. These people are all interns, they don't get paid much, and they probably rarely have the chance to eat the skewers to the point of pain on a normal day. Except for the girl named Hui Wen, who is a little arrogant. Everyone else got along well. I have to praise Xuzhen here. He is actually a funny guy. All the fun during the meal came from him. I was also a little tipsy. When I got to the room, everyone else went to wash up, but I sat on the sofa alone in a daze. It was about this time yesterday, and I was still living in Gui Ge's spacious and bright villa, drinking expensive red wine. The one who accompanies me is also a goddess like Xuran. But today, I am hanging out with a group of young kids who have just entered society. That's fine. When I am with young people, my broken heart seems to be healed. Ding dong. After a day of silence, my phone finally rang. I took it out and saw that it was from Gui Ge. There was only one line of words on it: "I'll be in Fuching tomorrow and we'll talk when we meet." I put down my phone in disappointment. It was indeed me who broke up first yesterday, but Li Ying didn't say a single word to save the relationship. I even looked through her moments and short video accounts, and the update frequency was the same as usual. She didn't seem to be affected by the breakup at all. Before I knew it, my tears were flowing silently. It turns out that she no longer loved me, otherwise why would she be so decisive? "Hey, brother Xian, what's wrong with you?" Wang Rui, who had just finished brushing her teeth, passed by me in a set of pink bunny pajamas. She was very surprised when she noticed my condition. "I'm fine. I just had too much to drink." I didn't want anyone to see my embarrassment, so I quickly raised my hand to wipe my face. "Is there anyone else in the bathroom?" "There is none left. I'm going to wash my face." This is the disadvantage of living in a dormitory. If everyone wants to go to the toilet at the same time, they have to queue up. Fortunately, I was not in a hurry. By the time I was the last one to wash my face and return to their hall, Wang Rui and the others had already returned to their respective rooms. Looking at the empty hall, I suddenly felt lost. "You're already ready to start a new life, why are you still clinging to the past?" I poked my cheek and secretly decided to let go of Li Ying completely and start my new life again. "Open the door." Suddenly, Shuzhen's roar was heard. Add blood to me, what's wrong with you, support? Are you going to take your ultimate skill home to collect it?" I saw him sitting cross-legged on the bed, his face flushed with excitement. His hands kept typing on his phone, playing the most popular game of the moment. A clipping sound came from the phone. "I'm sorry, brother, my phone just jammed." "You're so stupid, you've killed me." Shuzhen ignored Jiazin's pleas for mercy and started scolding his hands and feet. In the end, the support simply turned off his teammate's microphone and ignored him. I understand why this guy is single. With his straight male chauvinism personality, there is no chance that any woman would like him. "I'm going to go to bed." I went back to bed and lay down. "Keep your voice down." "Fuck, I don't want to play anymore." Shuzhen must have lost the game and angrily threw his phone to the bedside. "Brother Xian, it's still early, can you sleep?" "Yeah." I closed my eyes slightly, with no interest in talking. "Brother Xian, let's get up and chat for a while." Shuzhen urged. "What's your impression of Hui Wen?" "Who?" My mind raced for a moment before I remembered that Hui Wen was the proud girl with a nice figure. "Not very good." "Then you don't know how to appreciate it." Shuzhen ran to the head of my bed with a smirk on his face and said mysteriously, "Let me tell you, among the girls living here, Hui Wen has the best figure." "Have you seen it?" I had no interest in this obscene topic and just responded casually according to Shuzhen's words. Unexpectedly, this guy actually got interested, and was as excited as if he had been injected with chicken blood. "I haven't seen it before, but..." Chapter 17: The Troublemaker in Sales Team 2. Shuzhen stretched out his palm with a squinting look, and bent it a little bit. "I've measured it." "How do you measure this thing?" I really can't think of how to measure it when there is no contact between the two parties. The clothes I wear on a daily basis naturally don't look very standard. And Shuzhen's meaningful look must be a precise measurement. "Brother Xian, you are stupid." Shuzhen lowered his voice. "Their underwear is drying on the balcony. When she's not around, we can just take it and measure it and we'll know." "Fuck you." I resisted the urge to kick Shuzhen away, and I didn't want to have any more communication with this guy from the bottom of my heart. It's so fucking vulgar. Don't tell me about this kind of thing in the future. I'm not interested in knowing. I lifted the quilt, wrapped my head in it and closed my eyes. "Hey, it's so fun, brother Xian, you don't know how lucky you are." Shuzhen returned to his bed muttering on. One good thing about sleeping in the dormitory is that you don't have to worry about being late for work. At 7 o'clock in the morning, there was a loud clanging sound outside, as if there was a war. I glanced at the time and saw that I still had an hour before work, so I had plenty of time to go downstairs and have breakfast or something. I called Wang Rui, who had just washed up, and went to the breakfast shop downstairs together. "Xiao Rui, how many people are there in our sales team too?" Including you, Brother Xian, that's 12. Wang Rui explained, there are 3 interns like me and 5 new employees who have just been regular employees. The remaining 3 are old employees in the group. Wang Rui paused subconsciously. Every company has old employees who have worked for many years but have no chance of promotion, or they just don't know how to deal with things. Or, an old hand. Judging from Wang Rui's expression, it is very likely that these 3 are old hands. No wonder the position of Sales Group 2 supervisor has been vacant for so long. It doesn't seem to be a lucrative job. It's not difficult to understand. If it was a really lucrative job, I don't know how many people in the company would be vying for it, and it would never be the turn of an airborne soldier like me. What's the situation of these 3 old employees? I need to know more about them so that I can manage the entire group in a targeted manner. Wang Rui thought for a moment and confirmed that there were no Dian employees around her. Then she said carefully, Brother Fu and Brother Kuan have a lot of clients, but few of them are big clients. The only one left is Brother Zheng. He has only a few big clients and relies on them to live in the company in his old age. Before you came, Brother Xian, some people said that Brother Zheng was the most likely candidate to be promoted to supervisor. Wang Rui didn't say anything else. After weighing the pros and cons, I felt that this Brother Zheng might be the biggest trouble I would encounter after taking office. After all, it was my arrival that snatched away his chance of promotion, so it was only right and reasonable that I had to be tolerant. Of course, the premise is that Brother Zheng doesn't behave too excessively. If he dares to use some pretentious means, I will counter it with my own methods. I know nothing about great luck. My biggest advantage is that my previous management experience enables me to deal with the current problems with ease. It's good to have challenges. I thought to myself, at least fighting these old hands can help me forget the pain of losing Li Ying. He drank the soy milk in his hand in one gulp, stood up, and walked towards Dian with full energy. Wang Rui followed carefully behind him, looking as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. In her position, there are some things she really can't say too much. Not long after, Wang Rui and I arrived at the work area belonging to Sales Team 2. No one knew me at the moment, and no one greeted me when I arrived. I paid attention to it. There were 3 young men about the same age as Wang Rui, all sitting in front of the computer, looking through the company's corporate culture and product knowledge. There were also 4 or 5 people sitting together chatting in low voices, apparently sharing some experiences of visiting clients in the past few days. The remaining 2 were sitting with their legs crossed and watching short videos. One of them accidentally turned to Li Ying's video interface. Good morning, everyone. Sales Team 2 is still short of 1 person. Judging from the performance of the current staff, it will most likely be Brother Zheng, who has the most experience and the most resources. On my first day at work, I had to come up with some tricks to keep the situation under control. Good morning. Several young interns stood up and greeted me nervously. Xiao Rui, who is this handsome guy? 5 young people gathered together stood up and asked, It's not you who brought this customer, har 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 har. Wang Rui's face flushed, This is our new supervisor, Liu Xian. So he is the leader. The 5 young men didn't do their job well, but they did learn a lot about the corrupt atmosphere in the sales department. When they heard that I was the supervisor, several people handed me cigarettes and brought me water, and the work area suddenly became lively. As for the other 2 veterans, they just turned their heads to look at me and then went back to browsing their phones. I am aware of everyone's reactions. He smiled faintly and said, Don't be so formal, since we work in the same department, we are brothers. In terms of age, I am a few years older than you. You can just call me Brother Xian. Okay, Brother Xian. A young man yelled, I just can't get a client. When can Brother Xian take me there? When faced with difficult customers, employees will seek help from the company. Since I am in this position, naturally I have to share the burden with the employees. Let me familiarize myself with the company first, and then I'll find some time to go with you to take a look. I nodded with a smile. Thank you, Brother Xian. Several young people responded hurriedly. Seeing that the time was almost right, I expressed my thoughts, Brothers, I'm new here and I don't know you all. How about this, let's put aside work for the morning and have a meeting in the office to get to know each other. Okay. I will follow Brother Xian's arrangements. The young people were all busy responding, but the 2 veterans who were watching videos inside suddenly stood up, picked up their bags and walked out. Brother Fu, Brother Kuan, please don't leave. Wang Rui quickly shouted. Brother Xian said that there needs to be a meeting. Sorry, Brother Xian. The two turned around and said sarcastically, we have an appointment with a client and must rush over at 9:30. We definitely can't attend this meeting. A show of force. First, the biggest troublemaker, Brother Zheng, didn't come, and then the two old hands found excuses to leave. Sales Group 2 is not that simple after all. I see. I took a deep breath and walked over with a smile on my face. Customers are definitely the most important thing. It just so happens that I also want to learn about our company's sales situation. Shall we go together? Huh. Brother Fu and the other man looked at each other. They never expected that I would go against their will and follow them to meet the client. I'm afraid this isn't a good idea. Brother Fu was embarrassed. Actually, my client is not that anxious. There is no problem with the meeting. It's just, this is our first meeting. What should we do if we don't have all the people? Chapter 18, Stunning the Mountain. Seeing how confident these two people are, it is obvious that they have discussed it with Brother Zheng and they want to give me a warning. I haven't even met that Brother Zheng. If I contact him rashly, he will definitely embarrass me. But if I admit defeat at this point, Brother Fu and Brother Kuan will definitely become even more proud, and other people in the team will also look down on me, the new supervisor. Think of this. I calmly took out my cell phone and called Mr. Yang in front of them. Big Liu, are you in trouble? Mr. Yang, this old fox, probably knew the situation of Sales Group 2 a long time ago. It won't be that troublesome. I was angry inside, but I didn't show it on my face. I want to ask Mr. Yang, if a company employee is late for work and doesn't say hello to the department leader, how should he be punished according to Dian's rules and regulations? A fine of 200 yuan, deducting full attendance for the month, and notifying the entire company of the criticism. Last night I discovered that Wang Rui attached great importance to clocking in after get-off work. At that time, I expected that Dian's management was relatively strict. The punishment for being late or absent from work is definitely not light. Isn't Brother Jing trying to embarrass me? Then I will use my position as a leader and the company's rules and regulations to punish him. Good. I nodded and asked specifically, what's that Jing brother's full name? Wu Qianjing. Wang Rui pushed her glasses and answered nervously. Boss Yang, Wu Qianjing is late, and he hasn't come to the company yet, and he hasn't informed us yet. I raised my voice, please punish me according to the rules, Mr. Yang. In every company, the management rules of the sales department are relatively flexible. For example, if you have to entertain clients at night and drink too much to get up in the morning, your direct supervisor will turn a blind eye and pretend not to see it. But I'm different. Since Wu Qianjing is clearly trying to go against me, there will definitely be no place for him in my sales team too in the future. This is neither self-righteousness nor arrogance. It's a confidence in my personal abilities. After hanging up the phone, I looked at Brother Fu and Brother Kuan, who were full of surprise. With a smile on my face, can we start the meeting now? They don't care about deducting some money or something. If the criticism is announced to the entire company, it will be a matter of face. My dominance completely intimidated the two people. They no longer dared to resist and followed us to the office for the meeting. I spent the whole morning learning about the situation of Dian Group. They provide software services. Specifically, they cooperate with a series of channel partners to provide back-end maintenance and cash register system development and other projects. It's a bit complicated to explain, but in summary, it's about selling software. After I had a general understanding of some basic product knowledge and the corporate culture of Dian Group, I decided to get started myself. Just when I was about to find Brother Fu and follow him to deal with a difficult client as he said in the morning, the door of the conference room was suddenly pushed open. A man with a somewhat mean look walked in with a hypocritical smile on his face. I'm sorry, Manager Liu, I was drinking with clients until late last night, and I really didn't get up this morning. Logically speaking, I should lead the team to welcome Manager Liu on his first day at work. Look, this incident has made Manager Liu lose face. People who don't know would think that I, Wu Qianjing, am doing something on purpose. This barrage of sarcastic remarks was an explicit and covert mockery of me as a leader for not understanding the hard work of my employees and for my pettiness. The company's rules and regulations are like this. If everyone violates them casually, it will be difficult for Mr. Yang. I deliberately mentioned Mr. Yang instead of the administrative department just to use the tiger's skin to make a big coat. Let everyone misunderstand that I have a close relationship with Mr. Yang, so that they dare not openly oppose me anymore. Really? This tactic of making a warning to others did work. During the afternoon meeting, Wu Qianjing was very active. But I know that this is only superficial harmony. Privately, Wu Qianjing and the other 3 veterans will definitely not give up. When the enemy comes, we will fight them. When the water comes, we will block it with earth. If I can't even handle one department, how can I have the confidence to join forces with President Yang to protect Iran? After a whole day of meetings, I felt groggy. After finally getting off work, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Brother Xian. Brother Fu deliberately found me before leaving get off work and said, I have an appointment with that difficult client at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I hope Brother Xian can help me deal with this client. Today just showcased my nepotism in Dalian. At most, they won't dare to do it openly, but they will definitely continue to make small moves in private. I had expected this and didn't show much surprise. Okay, please send me the customer information. Thank you, Brother Xian. I'll send it to your phone later. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win every battle. Although it was a medium-sized client, it was a great opportunity for me to demonstrate my strength. I guess that General Yang might also be paying close attention to this matter, assessing from the side whether I am qualified to be his comrade in arms. I was not afraid at all and even wanted to make the challenge more intense. After all, intensive work can make me forget the pain of losing Li Ying. When leaving the company, suddenly I received a call from Brother Gui, asking me to meet him at a restaurant he often visited. What is coming will eventually come, and this time when we meet, I plan to give you some good advice. Xiao Rui. I called out to Wang Rui, who was about to go to eat. I need a favor from you. Brother Xian, just give the orders. Wang Rui was very excited. In her simple mind, I was strong enough today and was able to gain a foothold in sales team too. For an intern. Having a boss like me as a backer will make her internship easier and give her more chances of becoming a full-time employee. Wang Rui almost obeys my every word. You have to find a way to get the information of all the clients in Wu Qianjing's hands. Wang Rui was surprised. Brother Xian, what are you going to do? Don't ask too much, you will know it naturally when the time comes. In fact, my idea was very simple. Since I didn't plan to use Wu Qianjing, I had to control his customer base before letting him go. All workplace struggles must be conducted without violating the interests of the group. Otherwise, all the losses caused by the dismissal of Wu Qianjing will be blamed on me. Of course, these things cannot be revealed to Wang Rui. Her little head is too simple and she is no match for the smiling tiger Wu Qianjing. Once it's revealed, he'll be on guard and my plan will be difficult to carry out. Okay. Wang Rui nodded blankly. I'll sort it out tonight and give it to you before work tomorrow. Thank you for your hard work. I still felt guilty for making Wang Rui work overtime at night. After saying a word of comfort, I turned around and left, rushing to the place where Gui Ge had asked me to meet. Chapter 19. He is the one in charge. To be honest, I am still quite resistant to getting along with Gui Ge. Once interests are involved between brothers, the relationship changes. Ever since I agreed to help Gui Ge give birth to a child, I have personally felt some of Gui Ge's methods. As a person in a superior position, I stood next to him and suddenly felt a lot of pressure. Only when it comes to Zhuran, he and I can't avoid it. The place Gui Ge chose was not a particularly high-end hotel, but just an ordinary Sichuan restaurant on the street. I have asked this question before. Why choose a roadside restaurant with a very ordinary environment when there are obviously better places to choose? Brother Gui said that only in a place like this could he feel the so-called lifelike atmosphere of the world. Standing in his position, he is indeed qualified to say so. If it were me, I would be considered pretentious. Standing at the door, I finished a whole cigarette, then I gathered myself, straightened my work clothes, and walked to the box where Brother Gui was, pretending to be calm. Argue, what are you going to do about this? Our Xiong's voice came from the box. Do you think he was scared? My brother may look a little timid, but he is actually very brave and will not be scared by a few hooligans. Gui Ge's slightly hoarse voice sounded. Let's wait and see when he comes. Could it be that those little thugs are really not part of Gui Ge's plan? I felt a little relieved and pushed the door open, and saw our Xiong leaning intimately on Gui Ge's shoulder. When they saw me come in, they didn't show any intention of separating. Indeed. Given the relationship between us, Brother Gui really doesn't need to be shy about anything. Big Liu, sit down. Brother Gui waved his hand and pointed to the seat next to him. There are no outsiders tonight, let's have a good drink together, brothers. If he doesn't mention it, then I won't mention it either. Sitting next to Gui Ge, he raised his hand to take a bottle of beer, bit it open with his teeth, and clinked the bottle with Gui Ge. I know you've been wronged. Brother Gui smiled and said, I'll drink 3 bottles first as an apology. Does it have anything to do with you? I asked meaningfully. You'll see for yourself later. Brother Gui drank 3 bottles of beer in a row before he officially started a drinking contest with me. This is our favorite thing to do when we are studying. At that time, it wasn't that I couldn't drink much, but I was short of money. If I wanted to get drunk without any scruples, I had to save up living expenses for a long time. Now, we no longer have to worry about the money for drinking, but we can never get back the happiness we had before. Brother Gui obviously thought of all this, and while drinking, he kept telling me about the crazy things we did back then. Our Seong didn't interrupt, she just held her cheeks and pretended to be very interested in listening. After 7 or 8 bottles of beer, I felt a little tipsy. When I looked up, I saw Brother Gui secretly winking at our Seong. Da Liu, wait a moment, I'm going to pick someone up. Who could possibly disturb our Seong to go and pick her up in person? Could it be Juran? I was startled and most of the drunkenness disappeared instantly. I really can't guess what Gui Ge is thinking. With his deep personality, it seems that he can really make the decision to let Juran and Seong live in the same room. My mind was racing, wondering what I would do if I really met Juran later. Did she tell Gui Ge what happened after she got drunk that night? I was stuck in this dilemma for quite a while. Finally, the sound of high heels hitting the ground was heard outside. I was refreshed and couldn't help but sit up straight. Take it easy. Brother Gui smiled in a mysterious way, he's just an insignificant little person. Who's nervous? I breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it's not Juran, I can face anyone calmly. At this time, the door of the box opened and our Seong led a Ning, who was wearing normal clothes, in. She seemed to have been beaten. There was a red and swollen area on the left side of her face, and her eyes were also a little red and swollen. Brother Liu, I'm sorry. And Ning rushed in front of me and burst into tears. I didn't know Xiao Guang dared to hit you. I just nagged him a few words at the time, who knew he would take action so quickly. Brother Liu, I beg you, can you forgive me? I roughly guessed what happened to a Ning. What they do is illegal. Not only do they have to live in fear all day long, but they are also not protected like normal people. That is to say, after knowing that I was beaten, Brother Gui immediately asked Seong to give a Ning a beating. It looks like the consequences are quite serious. If she can't beg for my forgiveness, no one knows what other means our Seong will resort to. And Ning was really scared. You get up. I didn't reach out to help her. For a woman who has fallen into prostitution, no one can guarantee the truthfulness of her words. If she hadn't been behind this, her boyfriend Xiao Guang wouldn't be still in the detention center. I didn't suffer much anyway, just don't mess around again. I got beaten that day, and Xiao Guang was also beaten pretty badly. And I sprained my foot myself when I was struggling. In other words, the other side had more people, but they didn't gain much advantage from me. After hearing what I said, Ning didn't dare to move. She kept her eyes on Gui Ge while crying. Here, he is the one in charge. Get up. Brother Gui said in a deep voice, my brother suffered a loss, so let's just pay him back. You don't even have a few cents. Serve my brother well once tonight, and we'll be even. The same thing again? I subconsciously refused. Brother Gui, I'm really not interested in her. If you don't want to play, then I will assume that you haven't forgiven her. Brother Gui's eyes darkened. Seong, tell her to go back to Jinhai Hui and wait. Brother Gui, you are forcing a woman of good character into prostitution. I smiled bitterly and shook my head. I really can't understand Gui Ge's train of thought. Does he have to feel at ease when something happens between me and a Ning? It seems that if I don't accept a Ning, Seong will give her a good beating again. Hearing this, a Ning knelt on the ground in fear, grabbing my hand and begging, Brother Liu, I beg you, as long as you give me a chance, I can really serve you well. You don't know, I am very powerful. Forehead. I looked embarrassed. Subconsciously, I regard this kind of thing as something very sacred, and I can only do it with someone who is in love with me. I really don't dare to have any improper thoughts about an outsider like a Ning. What if I get sick? Sorry, I'm really not interested. I refused again, turned my head and pretended to be angry at Gui Ge. If you do this again, I'll leave. You don't even dare to take the beauty that's delivered to your door. I really don't know what's going on in your head. If I were in your shoes, I really couldn't understand my train of thought. Just like I can't understand why he insists on having someone else give birth to his child. Because of different positions, our perspectives are different, and we cannot understand each other. Never mind. Gui Ge waved his hand helplessly. Go away. Chapter 20. Is there really a city in the sky? After a Ning left, Brother Gui told me a piece of news that caught me off guard. Li Ying is back. What? I suddenly heard her name and my chopsticks became a little unsteady. I tried to act calm and said frankly, we've broken up. Whether she comes back or not is none of my business. Brother, can you really let it go? Brother Gui had an expression that said, don't hold on. Otherwise, I'll call Juran over and you can take this opportunity to have a good talk with Li Ying. No. From the breakup to now, Li Ying has never thought of contacting me. Even the news of his return was learned through others. If I really don't love her anymore, why should I go looking for her with a flattering face? What you get in return for compromising is not love, but bootlicking. I was in a bad mood and lost interest in drinking instantly. I stood up and said, you guys drink. I suddenly remembered that I have something else to do. Without giving Gui Ge a chance to speak again, I staggered open the door of the box and rushed out of the hotel as if I was escaping. Only. Looking at the bustling crowds on the street, I suddenly felt confused. At this moment, I wanted to see Li Ying like crazy. After all, she is the woman I have loved deeply for 4 or 5 years. How can I forget her just like that? Dragging my empty body, I wandered around aimlessly. It was not until a gust of wind woke me up that I realized to my amazement that I had arrived downstairs of Li Ying's house. The rented house was on the 6th floor. Through the window, I could vaguely see the outline of a person. She seemed to be changing clothes, preparing for the upcoming live broadcast. In the past, I would always help her and we would be busy together. Now what? I didn't even have the courage to go up. What if I saw it? I raised my neck, looked up at the figure disappearing from the window, and said angrily, she doesn't love me anymore. Do you really want to wag your tail and beg for mercy like a dog? Feeling depressed, I lit up a cigarette with a click and stood there in a daze, smoking it hard. The irritation of the smoke made me suddenly start coughing violently. Cough, cough, cough. I coughed so hard that tears gushed out. I'm not crying, I just feel uncomfortable physically. Big Liu. A doubtful voice sounded in my ears. My body trembled, and I tried hard to control myself and wiped away my tears. I stood up and forced a smile. It's been a few days since we last met. The person standing in front of me is Li Ying, my most beloved woman. But looking at her delicate face, my heart ached. I came down to buy something. Are you crying? No. I turned my head slightly. I was choked by the smoke. Smoke less. Li Ying still had that indifferent tone, so calm that it made people wonder whether she had really given her true love in the past few years. Oh, there's something you forgot to bring. What? I was in a hurry and it is possible that I missed some items. It's upstairs. Come with me and get it. Is Li Ying inviting me to her house? In the past, I would have gone back directly, but now I need Li Ying's permission. Things change, and the world undergoes tremendous changes. People change. Following Li Ying back to the familiar house, I felt mixed emotions and wanted to lie on my favorite sofa as usual. Reason tells me that we have broken up and can no longer be so casual. Li Ying searched the house for a while and finally took out the photo frame. It was a family photo taken in the dormitory when Gui Ge and I graduated from college. I usually cherish it, but I don't know why I forgot to take it away. For you. Li Ying handed the photo frame to me and said, I heard you're working. Yes, it's my first day at work. I tried to act cool. Sister Juran introduced me to this job. The salary is pretty good. Li Ying hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, then work hard and don't let Sister Juran down. I turned around silently and left this familiar house. After meeting Li Ying, my heart ached even more. She seemed to have really let go and still didn't say a word to try to keep me. The only thing that comforted me was that Sister Zhuran didn't seem to tell anyone what happened that night. Otherwise, I'm not sure how Li Ying would view me, and I guess there wouldn't even be a chance for us to be friends. I returned to the dormitory in a daze. I found that the room was empty, even when Rui was not there. Now I feel even more lonely. I ran into the house like crazy, took out my guitar, and started playing it frantically. The plane flies across the sky, the city in the sky, we are in the dusk under the rain. Now I am in a foreign land at night, feeling you flickering. This song, Castle in the Sky, was my favorite song when I was in college. At that time, Li Ying would snuggle in my arms, looking up at the sky with longing, hoping that there would be a city that belonged to us. But now, the singing is still there, but the person in my arms is lost by me. I roared over and over again, my voice went from clear to hoarse, and in the end, only a rhythmic howl remained. I don't know how much time had passed. The door opened with a click, and Wang Rui and other colleagues in the dormitory rushed in one after another. Wow, Brother Xian, were you singing just now? Wang Rui's eyes sparkled with admiration, that's great. I almost cried. If Brother Xian starts a live broadcast, he will definitely be more popular than those internet celebrity singers. Shuzhen praised jokingly. Brother Xian, if you become an internet celebrity in the future, I will be the first to buy you a sports car. Looking at the young faces in front of me, I felt lost. Once upon a time, Gui Ge and I were as young as them, and would fantasize about our own future on every boring night. Brother Gui has succeeded. Li Ying's career is also on track. Only I am still standing still. I put away my guitar, smiled bitterly and shook my head, I won't play it anymore. Don't. Wang Rui kept persuading him, it would be a waste if you didn't play such a great musical talent. Brother Xian, you have to believe in yourself. They didn't understand what my words, I won't play anymore, meant. It was a farewell to my past. Including this guitar that is closely related to Li Ying, I am also planning to sell it. Nothing else. I'm out of money and need to earn some living expenses as soon as possible. I returned to their house with my guitar and tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. Shuzhen was playing games again, and the noise was very loud. I was upset, so I got up and went outside. On the balcony, a girl was leaning on the railing, holding an unlit, slender cigarette in her hand. Hearing my movement, the girl turned around. It was Hui Wen who was more arrogant last night. She asked me, Brother Xian, are you angry? Have. I took out a lighter and handed it to her, why aren't you sleeping yet? I can't sleep. Hui Wen raised her head in annoyance and looked at the grey night sky. Brother Xian, do you think there really is a city above the sky? Chapter 21 Covering your face is useless. Among the girls in the dormitory, Hui Wen is the only one with the most outstanding temperament. With her tall figure and pretty face that seems a little cold, and when she is serious, she always gives people a feeling of indifference that keeps people away. Just judging from the appearance. Hui Wen's personality shouldn't be that cold. Her question made me realize that she might have deliberately disguised herself like this. Only those who have stories in their hearts can understand the meaning of the castle in the sky. I looked up at the night sky with a slightly melancholy look, and said absent-mindedly, even if there really is a city, it must be filled with haze. Why? Hui Wen was obviously a little unconvinced. After all, how could someone who could sing "Castle in the Sky" so heart-wrenchingly describe the city in such a terrible way? But she doesn't know. If Li Ying were still here, the city would be filled with sunshine. Without Li Ying, there is only gloom. Asleep. I didn't want to discuss this issue any further, so I yawned and said, I have to get up early to go to work tomorrow. Hui Wen was very dissatisfied with my lack of explanation. But she could only watch me leave helplessly. Back in the room, Shuzhen finally stopped playing the game and sat cross-legged on the bed to watch short videos. I took a quick look and saw that most of them were young ladies with long legs. They were dressed very refreshingly, which was a bit like skirting the rules. Shuzhen's face turned red as he kept clicking likes on the screen. Dead otaku. I cursed inwardly, turned around and lay down on the bed. Brother Xian, were you on a date with Hui Wen just now? Shuzhen put down his phone with a sly look on his face, watching a show. Where does this guy get the energy from every day? I rolled my eyes helplessly, we just met and chatted for a while, how did it become a date? Hey, you don't understand this. Shuzhen was very talkative. Maybe before I came, he was too lonely as a stay-at-home. After seeing me, he immediately regarded me as a comrade in arms with whom he could fight side by side. Hui Wen is such a proud little girl. Not to mention me, even Xiao Rui has never said a few words to her. I thought about it carefully, and it is true. It can be seen from the dinner last night that Hui Wen hardly opened her mouth except for eating and drinking. And then? I asked with my eyelids drooping, already feeling sleepy. Brother Xian, you are the first to see the moon because you are close to the water. Shuzhen instigated, Brother Xian, are you still single? Really? I am truly alone now, with no desires or requests. You should chase Hui Wen. Shuzhen said cheerfully, if you can get Hui Wen, I'll treat you to a big meal. Get lost. I really can't understand Shuzhen's train of thought. Will it be good for him if I catch up with Hui Wen? I just want to work and make money now. Brother Xian, you're such a coward. Shuzhen gave me a look of contempt, secretly climbed back to his bed, and continued to watch the young lady's live broadcast. Perhaps it was the alcohol that stimulated it that night. Or maybe it was the relief after seeing Li Ying. I slept extremely soundly, and it seemed that what was happening outside had nothing to do with me anymore. The next day, I was awakened by a series of loud clanging sounds, and when I got up, I saw that it was already past 8 o'clock. I just made the rule that we can't be late yesterday. It would be a joke if I were late today. Shuzhen, Wang Rui and others left together. There were only 1 or 2 people left in the dormitory, and they had washed up and were ready to leave. I rushed to the bathroom impatiently, and then a shrill scream came from inside. I'm sorry. I subconsciously glanced inside and immediately saw Hui Wen standing naked under the shower with her hands tightly covering her face. Her beautiful figure was fully revealed in front of me. I secretly compared it in my mind and felt that Shuzhen's vision was really sharp. His grade had to be at least AC+. Covering your face is useless. Everyone here knows you. You should cover your chest. I made a deliberate joke. It's a good deal for free, so don't miss it. Why don't you get out now? Hui Wen stomped her feet in anger. When her body swayed, the mountains on her chest undulated, which looked very shocking. Heaven can bear witness to this. I was so anxious to get to work that I didn't think about Hui Wen's figure. It seems that the bathroom doors in every dormitory are able to avoid the misfortune of breaking. I smiled awkwardly and left the bathroom, closing the door behind me. No time to wash up. I simply rushed out of the dormitory and ran all the way to sales department too. With only a few seconds left before the clock in time, I finally arrived. In the staff area, several interns looked at me in surprise. Not washing your face or brushing your teeth doesn't matter. The most important thing is my hair, which is a little messy from sleeping, making me look a little sloppy. Brother Xian, what's wrong with you? Wang Rui walked over carefully and handed me a stack of information. I'm still asking you. I asked with a straight face, why didn't you call me when you left this morning? I wanted to call you. Wang Rui lowered her head a little aggrieved, but Brother Xian said you were already out, so I. It suddenly dawned on me that it was this kid Shuzhen who was causing trouble. Just wait and see how I deal with him when I get back. I returned to my seat angrily and opened the customer information collected by Wang Rui to check. Confronting Logistics. When I saw this customer's name, my eyes lit up. Wang Rui collected several of Wu Qianjing's core customers, among which Confronting Logistics accounted for the largest share, almost reaching 60% of his sales. If I remember correctly, Confronting Logistics is one of the several projects invested by Gui Ge. He holds a large portion of the shares and leaves it to others to operate. This means that I can get Confronting Logistics into my hands at any time. Next, I started looking through the information of other customers. It seems that there is no customer more powerful than Confronting Logistics. It seems that he has been supported by his brother all these years. I leaned back in my chair, looking at Wu Qianjing's position and fell into deep thought. Perhaps due to the threat of punishment yesterday, Wu Qianjing sat obediently at his workstation today, casually browsing his phone. After feeling my gaze, Wu Qianjing raised his head and smiled at me. Brother Xian, do you have any instructions? This smiling tiger. The more I looked at him, the more unhappy I became. My intuition told me that Wu Qianjing was already planning his revenge against me. Therefore, I must get ahead of him, secure his clients first, and then go into battle lightly to face his revenge. Fine. I turned to look at Brother Fu, who was sitting next to him, and shouted, Fu Jiancheng, has your client made an appointment? It's a date. Fu Jiancheng quickly stood up and asked, Brother Xian, shall we go there now? Chapter 22. I will bear all the consequences. I glanced at the time and it was almost 9 o'clock. Arriving at the client's company at this time appears to be more sincere. I nodded, put the client information in the drawer, and then stood up and shouted, Xiao Rui, come with us. Is it really possible? Generally, interns are responsible for running errands and doing odd jobs, and rarely are they directly involved in client negotiations. My choice to bring her along means I want to train her as a formal employee. Wang Rui was naturally overjoyed and kept smiling as she followed us. Dalian Group is not far from the customer's location, only about 10 minutes walk away. I looked at the time and it would take a full hour to reach the agreed time with the customer. On their way there, I happened to pass by the dormitory, so I took the opportunity to let the two of them wait for a while and went upstairs to wash up. After all, it's a meeting with a client. Image is still very important. In order to prevent Fu Jiancheng from going back to tell tales, I reluctantly transferred the last few dozen yuan in my WeChat to Wang Rui, and asked them to find a place to have a cup of milk tea or coffee or something. After washing up, I took my guitar with me. There is a music store near the dormitory. When I came in, I saw a young man with dreadlocks lying on a chair basking in the sun. Brother, do you want a guitar? Everyone who plays music has his or her own unique personality. There's no need to play any nonsense with this kind of thing, just state your purpose directly. We don't accept ordinary guitars. The little dreadlock looked up at me and said, if it's better, I'll consider it. Then take a look. This guitar was purchased with the money Li Ying earned from her first month of live streaming and my internship salary. A new guitar costs just over 10,000 yuan. Considering that I have been using it for so many years, the ideal price in my mind is around 3,000 yuan. I'm just worried that the guy with dreadlocks doesn't know the value of the guitar and won't be able to see the advantages of the guitar. Who knows? The little dreadlock took it out and stroked it for a while, then nodded, not bad. A Yamaha folk guitar was a rare item a few years ago, but now it's considered a top-notch product. This guitar has indeed been updated a long time ago and has been replaced with a newer product packaging. People who are involved in music all have some nostalgic feelings. The older it is, the more fragrant it is. Brother, are you really willing to do this? The little dreadlocked boy said seriously. Anyone can see that a guitar that has been with you for many years has long surpassed the value of the object itself and has become a soulmate. No one would sell their guitar unless they were in dire straits. Out. I gritted my teeth and asked, how much do you want to give? How much do you want? As if afraid that I would misunderstand, the little dreadlock quickly explained, I'm not bargaining. This thing depends on the person. If it meets the right person, it will be a priceless treasure. So I have to respect you and give you a price that both of us can accept. What he meant was that he would not maliciously lower the price. It seems that I have really met an expert. I nodded secretly, $4,000. 3,005. Make a deal. The transaction went very smoothly. However, when I received the transfer of 3,500 yuan and handed the guitar to the guy with dreadlocks, I suddenly felt an inexplicable pain in my heart. It felt like being pricked by a needle. Brother, I can see you're having trouble. The little dreadlock smiled and said, come and play with me if you have time. I have a lot of good stuff. Thanks. I turned around resolutely and never looked back, for I was afraid that I would not be able to resist and would not be willing to sell it. Dreams will eventually turn into daily necessities. And now, I am short of money. When we met up with Wang Rui and the others, it was only 9:30, and the three of us traveled at a leisurely pace. Fu Jiancheng, how long have you been in the company? I took the opportunity to extend an olive branch to Fu Jiancheng. It is impossible for him to offend all the old employees when he was parachuted into office. The best way to manage is to get rid of the biggest troublemaker and then bring other old employees under your command. Almost 5 years. Fu Jiancheng sighed, in the past 5 years, I have outlasted 3 supervisors, and I don't know when it will be my turn. Everyone has the dream of moving forward, and Fu Jiancheng is no exception. Excuse me for being blunt. I deliberately hit him, if you continue to live like this, you will never have a chance to get promoted in your life. I know. Fu Jinqing's face was very twisted. Now that you are here and Brother Zheng is pressing on me, it's useless for me to try. Who said it's useless? I continue to use Mr. Yang's identity as a backup. Have you forgotten how I came here? R. Fu Jiancheng was surprised. Administrative department. I understand. Brother Xian, I will listen to you from now on. I will do whatever you tell me to do. Fu Jiancheng reacted quickly and expressed his submission to me immediately. But all this is just on the surface. If I want Fu Jiancheng to be truly obedient, I must first gain a firm foothold and let him see hope for promotion. The promotion may be fake. But as long as I'm willing to help him, there's no problem with increasing his salary. I nodded calmly. Let's go, let's deal with your client first. When I arrived at the place, I found out that his client was a milk tea shop chain run by a couple. This thing, along with clothing, catering, and coffee, is known as one of the four major pitfalls of entrepreneurship. If inexperienced people rush in, they may easily be cheated. However, this milk tea shop was established quite early and has gained a certain reputation in Fujian, so it is now qualified to expand overseas. If he gets this client, Fu Jinqing's monthly salary will increase by at least 2,000 yuan. It was not until I arrived at the office upstairs in the head office that I realized that Fu Jiancheng's so-called difficulty was related to the couple. Men become bad when they have money. The boss seemed to have a woman outside. When the boss's wife found out about it, she immediately had a big fight with him. The two parties are arguing about divorce, so how could they have the time to run a milk tea shop? Hello, Manager Liu. I have an appointment with Sister Yun to meet at 10 o'clock. Fu Jiancheng came many times, and was almost always turned away. The cooperation failed. Most of the employees inside are familiar with each other. Sorry, Brother Fu, the boss lady doesn't seem to be here. R. Fu Jiancheng was surprised. Can you help me make a phone call and ask? Sorry, I dare not. Manager Liu said bluntly. Yes, the boss lady is angry and anyone who calls will be scolded. Fu Jiancheng looked ashen. Brother Xian, it looks like we've made this trip in vain. Wait here. I just got angry and sat down on the sofa in the reception room. Is this okay? Fu Jiancheng felt a little guilty. What if the boss lady comes and is unhappy with us and chases us away? It seems that this proprietress still has a hot temper. But if this first negotiation since I took office ends in failure, Wu Qianjing and others will definitely take the opportunity to make things difficult for me. When I chose to come out, it was already destined to be a gamble. It's okay. I'll take care of all the consequences. I said in a deep voice. Chapter 23 Brother Xian, I'm really admired. After waiting for almost 2 hours, at almost 12 o'clock, the proprietress finally arrived. You can tell from the appearance alone. This woman is definitely a strong woman, the kind that carries murderous intent even when she walks. Sister Yun. Fu Jiancheng quickly stood up and ran over to say hello. It was a pity that Sister Yun simply ignored him and went straight into her office without even looking away. Manager Liu, come in. Manager Liu, who had received us earlier, walked into the office with a bitter face. Even with the door closed, one could hear Sister Yun scolding Manager Liu like she was training a dog. It was just a small matter, but Sister Yun kept talking about it. Manager Liu dared not speak out, and lowered his head and hummed in response, yes, it's all my fault. I will definitely check all the stores and will never make such a low-level mistake again. Everyone can see it. Sister Yun is taking this opportunity to vent her anger. Now that you know it, why don't you go quickly? Are you waiting for me to invite you out? I'll go right away. Manager Liu felt as if he had been pardoned. He ran out without even staying for a moment and went straight downstairs to check the store. See this situation. Fu Jiancheng was completely scared and whispered to me, Brother Xian, how about we come back another day? Some other day? When? I asked back, even if we really want a divorce, there is still a cooling off period. Are you willing to wait forever? When there is a rift between a couple, it cannot be resolved in the short term. If I don't go to talk about it today, who knows what will happen next time I come? Fu Jiancheng gritted his teeth and said, Brother Xian, please go in first. Look how scared you are. I sneered jokingly, stood up and brought the two trembling people to the door of Sister Yun's office. Bang, bang, bang. I knocked on the door gently. Come in. Sister Yun shouted unhappily. Hello, Sister Yun. I am the new supervisor of the second sales team of Dian Group. I haven't made my business card yet, so I can only introduce myself. My name is Liu Xian. Oh. Facing an outsider, Sister Yun's temper was slightly restrained. I have learned about your Dian software. It is not much different from what we are using now. Forget about the cooperation. In a word, all escape routes were blocked. If it were any other time, I might have really left. This negotiation is enough to affect my position in sales group too. I have to win it no matter how difficult it is. Since normal means don't work, try an unconventional approach by targeting the customer's pain points. I sat on the chair opposite Sister Yun, smiling calmly. Sister Yun may not understand it so thoroughly. The biggest advantage of our software is that it can monitor the financial transactions of each store at any time. Sister Yun frowned slightly, already showing signs of getting angry. We also have the software for our own stores. I believe this, but the speed of our monitoring is not delayed, almost all of it is in seconds, and there will be a self-reconciliation function, so that Sister Yun can more easily see where the financial situation is going. What I said has already been clearly implied. With this kind of software, you can avoid small actions by employees or other people to a great extent. Sister Yun is definitely a smart person to be able to grow her business to such a big size. After a little thought, she understood the hidden meaning in my words. What's the use of this? Sister Yun's tone softened a little. For example, the one-click reconciliation function can check the balance of the day as quickly as possible. Even if there is a discrepancy during the checkout process, you can confront the staff the next day. This was originally a trivial function that other software also has, but there is a lag in speed. The reason why I bring this up singled out is to address Sister Yun's pain points. As long as Sister Yun can control the money, all the troubles will be solved. As I said, men become bad when they have money. I was reminding her to get all the company's funds into her own hands as soon as possible. That way, her man wouldn't get the money and wouldn't have the capital to have affairs with other women. You are an interesting person. Sister Yun forced out a bitter smile and said, how about this, leave me your contact information. If it can really solve my problem, I don't mind cooperating deeply with you. Basically, when Sister Yun said this, she was already inclined to cooperate. I hurriedly asked Fu Jiancheng to take out his business card. This is the person in charge of this area. Sister Yun can have someone contact him directly if you have any questions. As for the other matters, I think I need to discuss it with Sister Yun alone. Okay. Sister Yun took out her cell phone decisively and exchanged contact information with me. After a brief greeting, I stood up and said goodbye to Sister Yun. Come outside. Fu Jincheng's face was filled with excitement. Breakthrough, a big breakthrough. I'd been here for 5 times, and I didn't even have a chance to say a word to Sister Yun. You're worthy of being Brother Xian. You're amazing. I thought to myself, with his cowardly look, how could he have a chance to talk to Sister Yun? However, I am still very satisfied to be recognized by Fu Jiancheng. That's not right, Brother Xian. Wang Rui thought about the whole process very seriously, then looked up and asked, the functions you mentioned before are not the most outstanding ones we have made. Why does Sister Yun have the intention to cooperate with us? You won't move at this. I am happy to share my experience with them. When running the market, the most important thing is to find the customer's pain points and show your functions in a targeted manner. When I said reconciliation, I was actually telling Sister Yun to manage her own purse and prevent her husband from spending money lavishly. This is a function that was singled out based on the conflict between the couple. Whether it is useful or not is secondary. The most important thing is that it provides Sister Yun with an idea of how to control her husband. No, it's still not right. Wang Rui was like a curious baby, shaking her head repeatedly. Brother Xian, how can you be sure that Sister Yun doesn't want a divorce? And how can you be sure that Sister Yun doesn't want to control the financial power? She's so smart and strong, she wouldn't make such a mistake. Hearing this, Fu Jiancheng also looked at me with a puzzled expression. You guys are at a disadvantage because you lack experience. I sighed and shook my head. Sometimes, when you go to the market, besides being bold, you also need to be careful. Think about it, if Sister Yun is willing to divorce, will she still be so upset? Perhaps she has thought of a way to control the economy, but she has not yet made up her mind and is not sure whether this can win back her husband. I just took advantage of the situation and said it out. In fact, I just guessed her thoughts and helped her make a decision. Hiss. Fu Jinquan took a deep breath and said, I never thought that there is so much to learn when doing business. Brother Xian, I am really impressed. Seeing his smug look, I suddenly had a bad feeling and quickly reminded him. Chapter 24 President Han is handsome again. Old Fu, if you want to get this cooperation, you'd better not say anything when you return to the company. Fu Jiancheng is in his 30s and looks quite mature. There's absolutely nothing wrong with calling him Lao Fu. As an experienced salesperson for more than 10 years, Fu Jiancheng only needed one reminder to realize the deep meaning behind it. He quickly patted his chest and assured, Brother Xian, don't worry, I will go back and say that I didn't see Sister Yun. Smart. I exclaimed. I don't want to judge others by my own standards. But my foothold in Dalian is not stable at the moment and I urgently need performance to demonstrate my value. Given my current situation, there is definitely no one in the company who is worth having Wu Qianjing keeping an eye on me. After all, he is a core leader of a department. There is no need to elaborate on the benefits of holding this position. Maybe there are people with connections who are also thinking of arranging their own people to take the position. Now that I have taken over Mr. Yang's position, and I'm not sure what kind of help Mr. Yang can provide, I have to keep a low profile. The three of them had a simple lunch outside, and when they returned to the company, the lunch break was over. Working in sales, overtime is the norm. I have no complaints about this, but I was quite surprised to see Wu Qianjing in the staff area. Brother Xian is back. Wu Qianjing, who had been playing with his phone with his head down, perked up when he saw me come in. How was it? Did the client negotiation go well today? No one was seen. I asked instead, why are you still here? At this point in time, Wu Qianjing should be maintaining customer service. Brother Xian, you also know that my client companies also attach great importance to it. Wu Qianjing said proudly, look, President Han called me at noon and said he would visit important clients with me in the afternoon. Boss Han is the head of our sales department. Do you think I dare to disobey his orders? It seems like a simple complaint, but it reveals a lot of information. I have heard General Manager Yang mention this Mr. Han. He is the director of Dalian Sales Department and has great power. It is said that this person also has a deep network of connections in the headquarters. In addition to the company's general manager, several deputy general managers also have to pay attention to President Han's expression. Simply put, Mr. Han is a big shot who is capable of competing with Mr. Yang within Dalian. Wu Qianjing said this deliberately to show the relationship between him and President Han, in order to warn me to be more polite to him. I pretended not to understand. That's great. I've also heard of Mr. Han for a long time. Let's wait for him together. Oh, how dare I trouble you, Brother Xian? Wu Qianjing's hypocrisy makes people feel very uncomfortable, and they want to kick him away. I smiled faintly, ignored him, and went straight back to my workstation and sat down. Didn't wait long. There was a sound of footsteps outside the door. Looking up, a young man in his early 30s, with fair complexion and rimless glasses walked in. This person has a face that shows he is very scheming and is definitely not someone you want to mess with. However, as my immediate superior, I have nothing to fear if he really dislikes me. Dalian is just a job I have to compromise on temporarily. Even if it's gone, I won't feel too lost. It can be said that my enthusiasm and passion were all contributed to my first job. As well as the business plan I have in mind, once I find the funding, I will still leave Dalian and start my own business. Boss Han, I'm glad you're finally here. Wu Qianjing trotted over to shake hands. I haven't seen you for a few days. Mr. Han looks handsome again. Har har, in the entire sales team too, your brother Zheng is the best at flattering people. President Han seemed to be joking, but he actually enjoyed it very much. Come on, take me to meet our big client. President Han, please stay. Wu Qianjing smiled and said, it just so happens that our brother Xian is here too, and he also wants to meet you. After all, I mentioned before that I wanted to meet President Han. Standing in President Han's position, he is indeed qualified to ignore me. But Wu Qianjing can't do that. He is my subordinate. If he doesn't want to fall out with me so quickly, he must pull me out to meet President Han at this time. Oh. President Han chuckled and said, I heard President Yang mention it a few days ago. A talented person joined our sales team too, but we were so busy that we neglected him. Seeing me stand up, Mr. Han came over first. You are Liu Xian, right? Hello, Mr. Han. The young man looks very energetic. He is born to be a salesman. Being good looking makes it easier to attract people's desire to chat, which can indeed give you some advantages when marketing. Especially some pretty girls, their sales skills may not be good, but they can get along well with customers and easily get cooperation and envy. The public relations department is mostly composed of pretty girls. If I could drink more and be more willing to give it my all, my performance would definitely be the king of the sales department. I heard that you met a new client this morning. After some polite conversation, President Han immediately got to the point. How is it going? Under the leadership of a talented person like you, the progress must be very good, right? I'm sorry to disappoint, Mr. Han. We are only in the contact stage now. I remained calm and showed no sign of backing down. Har har, keep working hard. I'm counting on you. Although Mr. Han concealed it well, I still noticed a hint of disdain in his eyes. He wasn't even interested in meeting me, so how did he know that I was going to talk to a new client? Obviously, it's all thanks to Wu Qianjin. There is an old-timer in the department who can report to a higher level at any time, which does make me feel a certain degree of crisis. This also strengthened my determination to get rid of Wu Qianjin as soon as possible. After Mr. Han and others left, I looked through the company's information, then called all the employees who were still in the department to the conference room and gave them a simple sales training. This can be seen from what happened in the morning. In the entire sales team too, except for veterans like Wu Qianjin, the rest lack confidence in the market. I want to make them realize the advantages of Daryan from the bottom of their hearts and then reflect them in the market. This process does not change because of a training session. But as long as you do a little bit every day and change your mindset, you will achieve very good results over time. This day, I was so busy at work that I didn't even have time to think about Li Ying. It's finally time to get off work. I returned to the dormitory with a tired body and a slightly hoarse voice. Brother Xian, what do you want to eat? Let's order takeout. I said to Wang Rui, I'll treat you. No, Brother Xian, you already treated me to milk tea this morning. I'm your boss. Do I need your consent to treat me to a meal? I deliberately showed off my authority as a boss. Wang Rui stuck out her tongue. Thank you, Brother Xian. Just as he finished speaking, the sound of a key opening the door was heard. My heart suddenly became nervous. Chapter 25 Labao's Little Fan. I saw Huiwen's body in the morning and ran away before she came out. If she came back, who knows what would happen? Fine. The person who came in was Shuzhen, whom I was going to cause trouble for. He completely forgot about the prank he played in the morning. When he heard that I wanted to treat us, he shouted that I should not be partial and should not forget my principles for the sake of beauty. We must treat his brother to a meal as well. My eyes darkened slightly. I haven't settled the score with you this morning, what do you mean? Har. Shuzhen scratched his bald head and approached me stealthily. Brother Xian, you have to thank me. You almost made me late, and I should thank you. I just want to ask you if you saw any scenery this morning. Hiss. I took a deep breath. So, I accidentally broke into Huiwen's bathing scene this morning. Was it him who did it on purpose? I turned my head to look at Wang Rui and found that she was not interested in our conversation, but was pointing outside very seriously. I asked softly, did you arrange this? No, how can I have that ability? Shuzhen explained, I know Huiwen has the habit of taking a shower in the morning, and she waits until we leave. Brother Xian, you don't know, I have fantasized countless times about breaking in and seeing Huiwen taking a bath, but I didn't dare. So you deliberately made me late and rushed in a hurry. I felt helpless. This guy has a head full of dirty thoughts, and he used them all on me. If we don't stop it, who knows what embarrassing situations will arise in the future. So you really saw it. Shuzhen's eyes suddenly widened, his lips trembling with excitement. Tell me quickly, does it look good? Is there, shameless. Wang Rui actually heard it and looked at Shuzhen with contempt. Roll. I pushed him away angrily. If you dare to scheme against me like this again, I will definitely teach you a lesson. Brother Xian, I have it outside, right? No. I scolded unhappily. Fine. Huiwen didn't come back yet, and after having a satisfying dinner in the hall, I went back to bed. Without my guitar, I always feel empty inside. The only bond between Li Ying and I is gone. From now on, I really have nothing to do with her anymore. At this moment, I missed Li Ying like crazy. I opened my phone and clicked on her profile picture, but surprisingly, I didn't see her live broadcast. A rest day today, I muttered and threw my phone aside. Why? Shuzhen, who was sitting on the bed and browsing his phone, suddenly sighed. What are you doing again? I was bored anyway, so I just wanted to know Shuzhen's dirty thoughts as a pastime. My goddess didn't do a live broadcast today. Shuzhen's face looked as painful as if he had lost a loved one. She's just a female anchor, is that so important to you? As for, damn, of course it is as for. Shuzhen stood up suddenly, his voice was extremely excited. Brother Xian, you can insult me, but remember, you can't insult my goddess. Is there any connection? I really don't understand Shuzhen's train of thought. Hey, that's not right. Shuzhen asked doubtfully, according to normal logic, Brother Xian, shouldn't you ask who my goddess is? Not interested. With Shuzhen's little thoughts, the female anchor he likes must be the one with black stockings and long legs. TSK, that's because you don't know how awesome my goddess is. Shuzhen picked up his phone and found the page of his goddess. Brother Xian, look, this is my goddess. She looks very pure and talented. I took a glimpse out of the corner of my eye and was stunned. Damn, isn't he this Li Ying? You like her? Yes, I swear, if I have money, I will definitely use it to chase her. Shuzhen started talking like a machine gun. I have been following Lebao since she started live streaming, and I don't want to miss any of her live streaming. And she's very hardworking, you know. She insisted on doing the live broadcast even though she had a high fever yesterday. So, for Lebao, I am willing to eat instant noodles and brush wazi for her. It's just that I don't work hard. My monthly salary is only enough to buy 2 or 3 wazis, and I can't give Lebao the life he wants. My roommate is actually a fanboy of my ex. It's such a coincidence that I can hardly believe it. Brother Xian, why don't you think Lebao is doing the live broadcast? Is it because of a high fever? It's so worrying. Shuzhen's voice was a little choked. I was annoyed by his noise and replied unhappily, she is resting today. Yeah, how could I forget about this? Damn it, every time Lebao takes a break, that's when I'm the most bored. Shuzhen suddenly raised his head. Brother Xian, you like Lebao too? Like? More than that, she is the woman I am willing to love with my life. Wow, I didn't expect that we are both true fans of Lebao. Brother Xian, which fan group are you in? Why haven't I seen you before? I resisted the urge to kick this guy away, sat up and was about to speak. Suddenly, the ringing of my cell phone startled me. Turning around, I saw the words, Zhuran, clearly displayed on the screen. My heart was pounding and my mouth was dry, as if I was walking in a desert. Even if it was Li Ying who called me, I wouldn't lose my composure like this. But she is Zhuran. A woman I had offended. Brother Xian, did your girlfriend call you? Answer it quickly. Shuzhen's face was full of gossip. Go away. I picked up the phone and stood by the window. I coughed a few times to calm myself down and clicked to answer the call. Sister Zhuran, what's up? Da Liu, Li Ying and I are at number 7 Back Street. She's drunk. Come and help me. On the phone, Zhuran's voice was full of anxiety. I will. I stopped talking halfway and said, Sister Zhuran, we have broken up. Da Liu, are you still a man? You have been together for so many years, and you are letting it go just like that. Zhuran's words made my heart beat fast again. Shouldn't I be more resolute? Come quickly, I really can't hold her back. Li Ying's drinking behavior is indeed not good. Every time she drinks too much, she always causes trouble. No wonder Zhuran was so anxious. It seemed that Li Ying was doing something drunk at this moment. Hearing the busy tone on the phone, I began to get anxious. Shuzhen, come with me to pick someone up. Who is it? Shuzhen looked completely uninterested. Buy you a pack of cigarettes. Brother Xian is so generous. Shuzhen immediately jumped off the bed and put on his shoes in no time. Brother Xian, I want wazi. Go away now. This guy actually took the opportunity to blackmail me. I must find an opportunity to give him a beating. After running out of the dormitory building, Shujin and I took a taxi directly to the backstreet number 7 bar where we used to go often. Chapter 26. You don't have to pay for the crash. People's mentality does change as they age. I used to love going to bars, but after I turned 30, I gradually stayed away from them. I don't like the noise and craziness inside. If I have free time, I would rather take Li Ying to a place where no one will disturb us, play guitar, sing, eat snacks, and watch the scenery under the sunset. Unfortunately, all these have become a thing of the past. Backstreet number 7 is as busy as ever. When I came in, I saw Li Ying standing on the stage with disheveled hair, dancing among a group of greasy men. She was wearing denim shorts, and her long white legs were particularly eye-catching under the ambient light. Even though she didn't reveal her stunning face, she still attracted a lot of people's attention with her figure. I noticed that there were 2 men who were always standing on Li Ying's left and right, with their bodies pressed tightly against Li Ying's buttocks. There was one who kept putting his hands in his pockets and turning them around. Oh shit! My blood boiled and I rushed onto the stage in one brisk step, pushing the 2 men away with a ferocious look on my face. Brother, do you have any moral principles? The 2 were not satisfied and bared their teeth at me. To take advantage, there has to be a first come first served rule, right? Get out. I tried my best to restrain the impulse in my heart. Brother, you want to cause trouble, right? The 2 men took a step forward towards me. At this time, Shujin happened to arrive. His mature appearance immediately frightened the 2 men. This brother is interesting, hanging out in a bar with a dad. The 2 ran away angrily. I have to say that maturity still has a certain deterrent effect. The young man, who was already feeling guilty, didn't dare to go against Shujin. Who knew if he was a nouveau riche who ran away to have fun behind his wife's back? Come with me. I angrily grabbed Li Ying's wrist and pulled her off the stage without saying a word. I'm dancing, why are you pulling me? Li Ying yelled at me. Seeing her crazy look, I really wanted to slap her in the face. Even if we broke up, you shouldn't be so unloving, right? Oh my god. A beam of light passed over Li Ying's face, allowing Shujin to see Li Ying's features. Brother Xian, is this Lebao? I'm not in the mood for her. I just wonder where Zhuran went. Knowing that Li Ying was drunk, how dare he leave her alone in the bar? Just as I was wondering, Zhuran's quickly running figure appeared in my sight. I'm sorry, Da Liu, I went to the bathroom. Did Li Ying cause any trouble? Zhuran must have drunk some wine as well, his face was red. The nervous expression on her face was not something she could fake, she just had to do it because she was in a hurry. I felt better and said, let's go. I'm glad you're here. Zhuran breathed a sigh of relief. I'll go get something, you guys wait for me at the door. Li Ying was still yelling like a madman and was particularly resisting my approach. In desperation, I could only turn around and say to Shujin, help me. He bent down, put her hands on her neck, and signaled Shujin to grab Li Ying's ankles from behind to prevent her from kicking other guests along the way. Ouch, Brother Xian, please be gentle, Lebao still has a fever. Seeing how rude I was, Shujin complained behind me. With Li Ying's crazy look, it was impossible for anyone to control herself. No wonder Zhuran called me. It would be a problem for her to walk out of the bar by herself. After coming outside and being blown by the cold wind, Li Ying seemed to sober up a little. She rested her chin on my neck, tears streaming down her face. In a short while, my shoulders were all wet. Finally, Zhuran arrived. She was carrying 2 bags and still walking in a hurry. Da Liu, I'm drunk, you go drive. Good. I agreed and wanted to put Li Ying down. Unexpectedly, Li Ying actually wrapped her arms around my neck tightly and I couldn't get away no matter what. Shujin, can you drive? Yes. Shujin did not disappoint me. Sister Zhuran, please give the key to Shujin. Zhuran didn't think much about it and readily took out the car keys and handed them to Shujin. It seemed that it was the first time that Shujin had close contact with a top beauty like Zhuran, and his face turned red with excitement. Da Liu, is that your new colleague? Standing on the side of the road, we chatted casually. Li Ying was lying on my shoulder with her eyes closed. I didn't know if she was asleep. I heard from President Yang about your work situation. It's pretty good. Zhuran's words came from her heart. Sister Zhuran, I'm sorry. There had to be an apology for that matter, so I mustered up my courage and finally said it. It's all over, and that was when you were drunk. Joran's words made me feel even more ashamed. It would be fine if it was really an impulse under drunkenness, but the problem is, it was clearly the result of a calculation. By the way, Sister Joran, has Brother Gui introduced any friends to you these days? That's what I've been worried about. After I quit, Brother Gui will definitely not give up. He might even find some outstanding young men to take the opportunity to get close to Joran. She is in constant crisis. No. Joran straightened his messy hair and said, Argue only came home once, had a meal and then left. Yeah. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, the cell phone rang again. I was holding Li Ying with both hands, so it was inconvenient for me to pick up the phone, so I could only ask Joran for help. She was tactful enough to put her hand into my pocket, but the momentary contact made me feel frightened. The call was from Shujin. Joran held the phone close to my ear and answered the call. Brother Xian, damn, why didn't you tell me that sister was driving a KN? You can't drive. Yes, absolutely. It's just that this car is too high-end. I'm afraid she'll scratch it. Can you be a little more promising? I sighed helplessly, go ahead and drive. You don't have to pay for it if it crashes. I do have the confidence to deal with Joran's car. Har har, Brother Xian, you are so awesome. I won't be polite then. From what Shujin said, he wants to drive the KN like a go-kart. I can't help but feel a little worried. Fine. After waiting for a while, Shujin drove the car steadily in front of us. Joran helped me carry Li Ying to the back seat, while she sat in the passenger seat. Drunk Li Ying seemed to be very clingy to me. He either strangles me or leans in my arms. It was fine before we broke up, but now, with our relationship, I always feel uneasy when he does such intimate things. Now that she is sober, will she be angry about this? Finally we arrived at the house where we used to live again. When getting out of the car, Li Ying still held my hand tightly, the kind that couldn't be pried apart no matter how hard I pulled. Forget it, Da Liu. Joran took the opportunity to instigate, send her back. Remember, you must seize the opportunity. Without waiting for my consent, Joran ran back to the car and made a cheering gesture to me. Seeing Shujin's excitement, I hurriedly reminded him, Sister Joran, please pay attention to Shujin. What? Joran looked puzzled. Chapter 27 Do you like me? Shujin, who was in a state of excitement, turned his head and looked at me with a puzzled expression. Don't talk to him too much, and don't let her touch you anywhere. I reminded him without hesitation, this kid has many lives on his hands. Fuck, Brother Xian, you're so mean. Shujin was a little exasperated. Wouldn't this affect his image in the goddess heart? Joran was surprised at first, but then he reacted and chuckled, then nodded slightly at me. KN gradually moved away amid Shujin's cursing, and I, somewhat nervously, carried Li Ying upstairs. What surprised me was that Li Ying didn't change the password of the fingerprint lock. Is it laziness, or is it intentional? I looked at Li Ying lying on the bed and fell into deep thought. In the past, when Li Ying was asleep, I could lie beside her without any scruples and sleep with her. In just a few days, I seemed to have fallen from heaven to hell. I sat on the ground, letting Li Ying hold my hand tightly. This might be an unconscious behavior on her part. She has a really bad drinking habit. In addition to crying and making a fuss, he will not let go of anything he holds onto. From the bar to here, my fingers have been pinched by her until they are completely bloodless and even a little numb. I tried several times, but I couldn't pry Li Ying apart and make her let me go. Of course. If I have to use brute force, Li Ying, with her small size, will definitely not be my opponent. But I don't want to hurt her. Just like that, I sat at the head of the bed, resting my other hand on my forehead, looking at Li Ying's angular and haggard face, my vision gradually becoming blurred. I'm sleepy. But it could also be blurry tears. Such an exquisite woman no longer belongs to me. Even when I looked at her, I had the urge to kiss her. My inner reason made me realize that if two people who have broken up kiss each other rashly, it would be an offense to each other. I simply buried my face in the bed and stopped looking at the face that broke my heart until I fell asleep. In fact, I slept very little during these days in the dormitory. Shujin would wake me up late at night and I would have to get up on time before 8 in the morning. The sleep time per day should never exceed 6 hours. My body and mind were so exhausted that I slept soundly next to Li Ying. I slept until noon the next day. When I woke up, Li Ying was no longer in bed, and I was covered with the sheets that Li Ying had slept on. The weird sleeping position caused my muscles to ache and become numb all over my body, and it took me a while to adjust before I could get up. I went out and took a look around, but didn't see Li Ying. He must have gone out. Joran asked me to seize the opportunity last night, but unfortunately, after spending a whole night with him, it seemed that I didn't seize anything except getting some sleep. I walked out the door feeling lost and closed the door of the familiar house again. The first thing I did when I walked out the door was to pull out my cell phone to check the messages on it. Brother Xian, why don't you answer the phone? I don't know why my phone was muted, so I took it out and saw several missed calls and various messages from Wang Rui. Bossan came to inspect our department and found you were not there, so he left angrily. Brother Xian, you are in trouble. I heard that president and went to the Human Resources Department. Just wait for your punishment. Brother Xian, please come back soon. Brother Zheng and the others are waiting to see you make a fool of yourself. From the tone of the message, it can be seen that Wang Rui is really anxious. Wu Qianjing has always been looking for an opportunity to mess with me. Unexpectedly, I personally brought this opportunity to my door. After all, I criticized Wu Qianjing in a company-wide notice for being late 2 days ago. Now that they have finally caught me, Wu Qianjing and President Han will definitely not give up. I opened Mr. Yang's phone number, thought about it, and gave up calling. Whatever. Let me use this incident to see how Mr. Yang treats me. I made a hasty decision and decided to skip work today. It is at least 5 kilometers from here to the dormitory, and it takes more than 10 minutes to drive. Feeling relaxed and with plenty of time, I decided to walk back. Look at the scenery along the way and feel the hustle and bustle of the city to comfort my broken heart. It sounds very meaningful. It's really difficult to do. When I was young, walking these 5 kilometers was like a piece of cake. However, due to lack of exercise, I felt exhausted halfway through the journey. There happened to be a small park next to the city river, so I decided to rest for a while in the pavilion inside. I had nothing to do when I got back anyway, so I just indulged myself. Dragging heavy steps, I slowly walked towards the pavilion in my memory. It was mid-afternoon. There were not many people in the small park and it was very quiet. However, when I was approaching the pavilion, I suddenly heard a melodious guitar sound. As if a string was touched, I quickly ran forward a few steps. Inside the pavilion, there was a slightly lonely voice sitting, holding a guitar, looking at the slowly flowing river, and occasionally plucking the guitar strings with his fingers. That person and that guitar gave me an unreal feeling of traveling through time and space. The person is Hui Wen. And the guitar was the one I sold to Little Dreadlocks. As if hearing my footsteps, the sound of the guitar stopped abruptly. Hui Wen didn't intend to look back and continued to stare at the river in a daze. Why is my guitar here with you? I stepped forward and sat opposite Hui Wen. Are you here to call me to task? Hui Wen glanced at me with disdain. I'm not questioning her, I'm just curious. I was relieved to find that she didn't mind that I had seen her figure before, and asked jokingly, are you in love with me? Neuropathy. Hui Wen looked up disdainfully and said, go forward, get a taxi after you leave the park. The fare is about 20 yuan, and the destination is Fucheng 5th Hospital. If you don't have the money for the ride, I can lend it to you. Everyone in Fucheng knows that the 5th hospital is the legendary mental hospital. You are quite clear about this. I smiled and said, could it be from that place? Huff. Hui Wen stood up suddenly and put the guitar on her shoulder. I feel sick to even say one more word to a scum like you. Hui Wen left in a huff. It leaves me with a lot of doubts. I remember the night when I sang Castle in the Sky, Hui Wen expressed the idea of communication. It's only been 2 days, how come you describe me as a scumbag? Also, where did she get her guitar? I just feel uncomfortable until I figure this out. After leaving the small park, I went straight to the music store where Little Dreadlocks was. There was a customer inside choosing a guitar, but he looked around and didn't find anything he liked. Seeing me come in, the guy with dreadlocks asked the customer to take a look for himself, and he ran over on his own initiative. What happened to my guitar? I started to question.